mystery, uncut truth, no filter. History, legends fall and rise again. Off script, podcast, rocking the pain. We go wild out of sight, off the rails in the night. Western tales all are true. Joseph Lee's crew, straight through. Smackdown stories, heated debates. Backstage secrets, rumors create. Heroes, villains, clash, collide. One podcast, wrestling ride. Hear the crowd scream, shout loud. Knights of wrestling, we ain't cowed. Joseph's voice, a rebel yell. Rain of fire, we raise hell. We go wild out of sight. Joseph Scully Knight calls out tonight, breaking chains and rules gone wild. Mike and him, he won't be silent. WWO chaos so defiant. We dive deep into the ring's mystery, uncut truth, no filter. History, legends falling.
All right. I don't even know where my glasses are. Fuck the glasses. Okay, here they go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to WWO Off Scripts, or should I say my Off Scripts. And I finally, I've managed to corral this guy. I've got the guy I've been wanting to catch ever since I started the podcast, because you know, folks, we have interviewed the creative staff. We've interviewed some of the talent in our WWO virtual brand, and we actually got to do a couple of regular wrestlers, friends of mine. But there was one guy, if you follow our WWO virtual history on our Twitch channel, YouTube channel, Facebook, you know that this guy here is my number one nemesis.
I'm glad to be a pain in your ass.
That's right. I always said this, and for everybody to know, and again, we're off script, so there's no kayfabe. We're not kayfabing on the show. One of the best damn promo guys I've ever met, and I've met a good bunch of promo guys, but this is one of the best. It always tickles me when I see you doing a promo and you're running down LG, and you're like getting everybody like. There are times even I have to stop to not laugh during the show.
It's funny you say that. I'm glad to actually hear that, because I like making the guys break constantly. And honestly, it used to be back in my WXW days with the Samoans. It was a gag, and you know how everyone ribs everyone how it is now. It was constant for us, and me and two other guys would constantly do this to each other and try to get each other to break in the ring. And there was a guy that called himself Bob, and he was actually a comedian when he wasn't doing wrestling stuff. And one day we're in a battle royal, and he grabs me, and he knows I'm a Transformer nerd. He knows my Transformer tattoos, and he grabs me in the corner and starts making Transformer remarks and quotes from the movies, trying to get me to bust in the ring. And luckily I had the long hair, put the hair in front of my face so no one could see me laughing, because Bob was trying to get me, because I've gotten him so many damn times.
So if I go to you, Megatron, no! I'll remember that. You know, got to do that now in my promos against you. One of the things, folks, we get background on these guys. We try to find out as much. And again, Shane here is a legit professional wrestler. You mentioned Alpha and the Samoans. I knew. What is it? Oh God, I forgot. Samu. I've actually met him. He's tried to sell me his ring once, and
it's probably the same ring. It's probably the ring I ended up buying from him.
Okay.
That they used in WrestleMania 3, and now then after I used it for a couple of years with the promotion I was running, I actually sold it to my buddy SLG down at the Sanctuary in Hazleton. He built into the stage entranceway to get to his current ring.
Okay, yeah, because this was last year, because he was moving to Florida, because the family was moving to Florida. Okay. Yeah, he sends me a message, says, hey, I'm selling my ring. You interested? And I'm like, I don't have any place to put it right now. So, and then then foolish me, a buddy of mine says, "Oh, I can put it in my garage and we can set it up." And I'm like, "Oh, gee, thanks for telling me." Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, Shane is part of the Real Wrestling. He does Real Wrestling, and then he does the Virtual Wrestling. So he has his own brand that he does on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And he does our show, which is WWO, World Wrestling Organization, which is the same company. And in fact, behind me, you probably can't see me. I'm going to torment this man. I have the actual belt hanging up there. So I got to come up to you one day. I got to come up somehow. We got to meet in the middle so you can take pictures with it. I can have you with the actual legit belt. So let's start back, Shane. Let's go over, how did you break into professional wrestling?
Oh, I've always wanted to, ever since I was a kid. I've been a fan of wrestling since I was young. My uncle got me into it, and I never knew how to actually get into it. And in 1994, I started working at Circuit City, and the next year, there was one of their area managers, I can see his face, I can't remember his name right now, told me, he goes, there's a wrestling school in Allentown. It's the Samoans, and I had no idea. The next day, I was down there doing a tryout. I went down haul ass, took the tryout, passed the tryout. Alpha asked me, have you done this before? And I said, no. Why? As I guess I did really well in the tryout. And the next day, I took out a personal loan and signed up the next day. And it's been 30 years now.
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations on that. When you see it on TV, I actually accidentally fell into professional. I was a big wrestling fan. I used to watch all the territories growing up. And I didn't want to be a wrestler. I wanted to be a manager. And my introduction was a lot different. I was a cop in New York City, and a buddy of mine, John Arezzi, needed security. So he says, hey, can you provide me some officers, because I need security. So I did it. Met some of I met some of the people that I watched on TV, and I was like, wasn't marking for them, but I was like, oh damn. And I'll never forget the day Eddie Gilbert, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, may he rest in peace, comes up to me, hey kid, you want to be a wrestler? I'm like, no sir, if I wanted to break in, I want to be a manager, like Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, and all those guys. He says, cool, well I'll meet you at my hotel tomorrow, which was I think it was Saturday and it was Sunday, he was leaving. I became his roadie, and every time we got into a show, he would teach me something. He would put me in a headlock, teach me the moves, and then when we go to a show where he had to perform, he would say, hey, I'm using the ring for half an hour, and we would go boom and do that. So and then Eddie used to drink, so you can imagine him in the headlocks breathing on me. So come on, Joey, fight back. And then he wanted to call me Joey Dangerously. And I'm like, no. Crazy. But, so I'm familiar back then. I was familiar. What year was this that you started going to school?
1995.
Damn, youngin'.
Yeah.
I was already traveling around in my day, but I remember there was a couple schools back in the late 90s, mid 90s, even earlier. The Monster Factory. I remember the Samoan school. When Eddie was around, we would go to Gleason's gym, Johnny Rogers' school, to work. We went to Mike Sharp's school in Staten Island. So I never got a chance. I went to the other ones, but I never got a chance because I didn't know the Samoans were in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah.
So how
I started off in Allentown and then moved up to Hazleton after a while.
Okay. So let's go on that real quick. How difficult? Because I know from my experience, every school is run differently. Some people, like Iron Mike, will do, he wasn't hard, he wasn't stiff, but he would, he will emphasize certain things. How hard was being in the Samoan school?
It was tough because I mean all the Samoans are big guys, and I'm not the tallest guy in the room, and Samu and the Samoans they work stiff. I mean they're not potatoing you, they're not beating the shit out of you, but they work stiff, they work tight. So it was something to really get used to. And at the time there was myself, another guy Neil, he went by the name Little Running Bear, did like a Native American gimmick, and we were the smallest guys there. Another guy. We were the tossing dummies for the longest time because everyone else was 6'1", 6'3", 6'5", and it was tough, but we stuck it out because we really, really wanted to do it. And it was a tough class. We started off all the times with squats, sit-ups, push-ups, leg lifts, and it was 1,000 squats twice a week. You did 100 squats, 25 leg lifts, 25 sit-ups, 25 push-ups, 100 squats. And then when we were done with that, then we went running. And then when we were done with that, then you got in the ring, then we ran ropes, then we started bumps. So it was tough. Pops ran it very strict to make sure you were ready with the calisthenics, to make sure you were ready with all the you weren't blown up in a ring every 5 minutes, It was making sure that you were ready for what was going to come your way. You learned to take everything before you gave everything. So if you wanted to give chops, you took chops. And I mean, the Samoans catcher's mitts for hands, so you got it, you felt it, and it was crazy. But it was overall a great experience for me. I loved it. I got to meet a lot of legends. I got to work with a lot of legends because of being the closest I have to the Samoans. My first month there, I tell the folks this time, I literally peed my pants once in the gym because I'm doing the workout and I was exhausted. And people are already giggling, so I didn't know what was going on because, everyone's ribbing each other. And they're like, lay down, son, just breathe. And they put me through a breathing exercise. And I feel the ring moving around, and Pops goes, okay, open your eyes, son. And I opened my eyes, and I just saw red, and it was Yokozuna. He was visiting that week, and he dropped a leg on me, and I was freaking terrified. And then everyone laughed at me. But, it was my first time meeting Rodney, so he was awesome. He was a great guy. It was great, but the workouts were absolutely brutal. And when I go to new schools now, I don't see it. Everyone just wants to learn moonsaults right away. They want to learn the high spots right away. You got to go through the fundamentals, or you're not going to be able to do a 25, 30-minute match because you're going to be blown up.
Yeah.
You got to work on the cardio. You got to work on the rope, the chain wrestling. And that's what I learned first. And then it was all the big spots after that.
Well, and one of the things...
It was great training.
One of the things I got to say, and I'm a big critique of today's wrestling, because it's all, like I call them monkey flippers, because everybody wants to impress everybody on YouTube, and there's no substance. Given your character and the times we've talked and your promos, I see you also know psychology in the ring. And I see some of your matches on YouTube, you also do, it's very, you not only got the fundamentals down, you got the promos down, but you also know the psychological aspect of that. That's something I don't think that anybody picks up today.
No, and to me, that's still one of the most important things you need to have because, especially in indie shows, you only get X amount of time from bell to bell to tell your story. And if you don't have weekly TV or even YouTube or whatnot, the audience only gets to see you in that time. You've got to resonate the emotion from them, the responses from them. You want to get the pops in from them, and you need to use that ring psychology. If you go in there and you're doing 6 Canadian destroyers and everyone's just getting back to their feet like nothing's wrong, it sucks. And not only that, but you're gonna kill the next match.
Yep.
You're gonna get them all pumped up, and then they don't care about that if the next guy's not doing anything. So I'm a firm believer in the psychology of the match, building up to it, getting the comeback spots, the fake comebacks, getting your heat in, getting your shine, and I do agree. There's a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the product itself is changing, the atmosphere is changing, the audience has evolved, but you could always keep that psychology in there to draw the audience in. And I used to do some the moonsaults and stuff when I was younger, but now I do a lot more. To break it down, I do a lot less to get a lot more.
Exactly. You do more of the ground stuff now.
Yeah, I've always done high impact stuff and striking stuff. Because, like I said, I was never the biggest guy in the ring, so I wanted to make sure everything I can do to anybody. And that's why I always went to the super kick. And now it pisses me off that I see every match is 20 super kicks. It takes it away from it, It's now the punch of the wrestling world is 30 super kicks. And I met the Usos when they were 5 years old. And now seeing them do it over and over and over and over again, I'm like, you're killing me. But the ring psychology is, to me, still the most important thing you need.
Yeah, one of the things, because I used to do, first of all, hi, Jocelyn. Jocelyn says, hi, guys.
Hi, Jocelyn.
The demon is over. She's on Twitch right now. She's going to get stuff. Also, Selena, she says, hi. She says, oh, my God. She says, finally a real wrestler. Not Jeremy the Man. So, it's a better Shawn Michaels, Selena. So I noticed from like the current wrestling, and I'm not going to dump on the current wrestling. I don't want to go into that. I want to focus on you and your career. But one of the things I do see is what you exactly said. Like back then, a DDT with Jake Roberts ended, and I got to meet Jake.
The match.
Yeah. You got to see a Hogan leg drop. You got to see a Macho elbow. You got whatever, Ric Flair's figure four and all that. And now people just jump up and says, hit me with something. Hit me with 15 other deadly moves that can cripple someone.
Yeah.
And I run it with a circle of veterans. And we get together, we talk about the business. And one of the things exactly you said is like, I remember when Paul Orndorff used to drop a pile driver and Morocco and Undertaker, and now guys kick out of it, and I'm like, I just throw my hands up, and I'm like,
it hurts the legitimacy of the move. It hurts the legitimacy of the. And again, I know it's a show. It's a stunt show. You're putting on a performance, but at the same time, if you've got 7 pile drivers in a show and everyone's kicking out of it, you make the move itself look weak. You make it look weak, and one of the company I'm working heavily with now, I like because they have that old school mentality. Because it's one of the guys that trained me. He goes by the name Jack Molson. Still has that old school psychology in there. And right now they're telling the guys that this is this guy's finisher. No one else on the show is allowed to use this move.
Yep.
And I respect that. So I'm going around saying, what do you use? What do you use? Because I want to make sure I don't throw it out there on that show. And I still find myself. And right now, I'm not even working at Showtime Shane Black. I'm working as another character from my XFW days that I didn't think would resonate, but that's just a whole other thing. But I still, even though I've changed my entire moveset, I still make sure I'm not going out and busting out a big move early in the match because you need that build up. Small stuff, a couple medium things in the middle for the finish, for the shine, for the go home spots. And I like the fact that they're trying to do that same thing with all the guys, and now they're having me agent a lot of matches because I've been around, for so long, and I'm trying to tell these kids the same thing. Don't do this early, don't do this. They'll go with their match, and I don't want to be the guy that says, no, you can't do that. But I'll give them a lot of tips saying, okay, if you're going to do this, you need to move it back towards the match. You can't come out and hit a springboard lariat as your first damn move. I say there's guys on AEW using that for a finish. You can't do that to start your match.
Right.
If you do, it's got to be a squash. But they're taking super moves and getting right back up like nothing's going on.
Yeah, and I think that kind of destroys the match itself and then the credibility, because if you could do that and you're like 80 pounds soaking wet and you're kicking out of a tombstone and a macho elbow and whatever,
right?
Yeah. So if a guy who's 250 whatever gets hit by the same move and he's passed out or like knocked out, then that guy's a wuss because this 80-pound kid just jumped out of it.
Hey, and there are, it's one stigma that I hate also where they say small guys can't win. That's bullshit. because you've got Rey Mysterio who goes up against the Big Show, goes up against Brock Lesnar. There is a whole psychology to big man versus small man match. But that same thing, if you've got a big guy who gets hit by a move that 3 smaller guys kick out of in the same show, it ruins it.
Yeah.
And that's where the guys booking the shows, agenting all the matches, need to have that open communication. Okay, this is going on this match. It can't happen here. You can. And I actually just, and luckily I wasn't involved in this. The last show I was at, there was a younger kid, great worker, real good attitude, but wanted to do a specific move to somebody to match. And like, no, someone else is doing that, and your opponent is bigger. It won't make sense. But he argued left and right. I won't want to do it. I want to do it. Like, no, we don't want you to do this match. If you're in a show and they're telling you no, it's no. Unless you're the guy running that match, running that show, the guys running it are our final word. And I've been doing this for 30 years. If I go and say I want to do this, they say, no, we don't want you to do that. I'm not going to do it.
All right. You know what? Hold up, folks. I'm going to get questions. I'll get your questions later on. I got a couple of people asking me questions already on YouTube and on Facebook. Hold on, folks. Let's go into what we got here. Let's continue with Shane first, and then I'll get all your Selena, just message me all the questions, and then I'll ask Shane, so I don't need the wall of text. One of the things I'm going to ask you is, and I've come across, I was a former promoter myself, and in a sense I still promote, but it's the storytelling, the storylines. People say, oh, you can't do storylines on indies. Bullshit. If you're appearing in a location that you're going to repeat, it kind of draws people back in. And I think that's one of the things, like, oh, the good guy just lost to this bad guy because of something. You come do the next show and the same thing happens. People get engrossed into that. I've noticed a lot of people prefer the older way of wrestling, the storylines, the kayfabing and the entire psychology of it, and the newer fans like the high spots. So I used to love doing that. How important is storylines in your matches?
It's the main thing I try for, wholeheartedly. When I get to a show and I find out who I'm working, I want to find out exactly what they want to do. And the first thing I say is, what do you want to do tonight? But that's after I find out what the promoters and the bookers want. What do they want from me? Am I going over? Am I putting someone else over? Am I being used as enhancement to get somebody else to help build up? That first, I need to find out what the foundation is. Then I get with the other guy and say, what do you want to do? This is what we got to do. And just to give you an example, the last match I worked was a guy I've never worked before. First thing he says, okay, what's your gimmick? What are you doing? What do you push for? And he was a little bit bigger than me. A beefy guy. He goes, well, how about we do this? I said, no. He was bigger. He was beefy, doing a Russian gimmick. I said, I want you to get the power over. So the first things I did was, and this is where now, as I'm older and I don't do as much high spots as I used to, I'm doing so much more character work and psychology now. And I've actually got younger kids going, you took 3 bumps and the entire place is going bananas for those 3 small bumps, because I've got them invested emotionally in the match. And with this other kid who's relatively new, he'd only been working 3 or 4 years, I made sure that the power that he presented, because he was a big beefy kid, was one of the first things I needed to get across in that match. I needed that to be a storyline. I needed that to be known, that he was the power in the match. And then I put the whole match around that, where he constantly overpowered me. So I had to outsmart him in ways to because I was going over that night. So the storyline to me is the most important thing, because if you do something that doesn't make sense, you've got the hardcore wrestling fans, the smarks, if you want to call them, whatever, however you want to refer to, will pick up on that and they go, well, this sucks. They're going to know. Yeah. Even though they know it's a show, they're looking for that story. They're looking for things to make sense, even though we're doing some things that are ridiculous and goofy. They're looking for it. So for me, the storyline and the psychology is the absolute the most important thing in a match. Yeah,
and again, that's where being even on the, people say, oh, it's just an indie show, it doesn't really matter, get your match and get out of the way. If you just do that, then the crowd is never going to come back, and they like to see a story, even if it's a small promotion. that they maybe see maybe 2 or 3 months down the road, but at least they'll remember, like, damn, this match was good. I can't wait to see the rematch. So,
Yep.
so let's go into another thing too. One of your when you graduated out of the school, what happened after you graduated out of the Samoan school?
I started working heavily for WXW. Well, actually, at the time, it was, holy shit, they went through a couple different names. It was All Star Pro Wrestling to start, because Alpha was working with some other folks. Then it was World Star Wrestling, then WXW. So I started working primarily for those guys, and then getting with some of the other boys and branching out and trying to find other work. So at times, the old school ways, they said, hey, we're going to a show. Can I tag along? I'm going to get my gear. I'm going to go. And then you just show up. And if they had a spot, you get on the card. And trying to push yourself, because if you're in the indies, you're always your own promoter. You are the person that's going to push you the most. No one else is going to invest in you unless you're working specifically with them or under contract, which is rare in the indies. You're your own biggest promoter. So I got out there just as much as I could to push myself. Even a lot of small shows I would go to just to work out in the ring beforehand, hoping someone would say, hey, that kid's pretty good, let's put him on the show tonight. Was one of my biggest ways of getting in there. And I always liked to bump, so one of the things I'd say, hey, I'm going to practice moves, I'll take it. Even guys that didn't know, I said, just give me the move and I'll just take the bump. And that got me a lot of matches back in the day. Because what I refer to as the fish bump, I have a lot, like the last match I did, I told this guy, I said, I want you to hit me with a clothesline. I said, I want it to be relatively stiff. So I'll bump on the back of my neck and shoulders and fold my knees into my head.
Right.
And I said, I want you to hit it with power. And I've always done it. People go, ooh, shit. Because it looks like I'm getting murdered. And I would do that a lot when I would go practice, and they go, let's give this kid a spot.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I would really promote myself. Hanging out with a couple guys I know were solid and were already getting bookings, and I would just tag along with them, get to shows, and then I luckily back in my heyday had a lot of word of mouth. So I was working between Jersey and Maryland and Connecticut and all around the tri-state area, and I was really doing pretty well for myself back in the day.
That's pretty cool. You know, you don't really hear that. Like, it's great to hear like the stories. You get with your buddies, you travel from place to place, and we always say, and everybody used to say it, bring your gear. You never know when you're gonna get pulled on a show. And so, you know, so you start going from, you went from the school, you start doing your you know, you're traveling around. What was your very first match? Do you remember your first match, and where was it?
The very first match I had was only a couple weeks out of training, where I was just still in the ring crew, still doing security, and it was in Frackville, PA. I had gone down there. I didn't even have my own gear yet. I was still fresh, and somebody had canceled, and they needed somebody to work, a guy who called himself the Wolfman. And they said, hey, kid, we need you to work tonight. I went, I don't have anything. So I had to borrow somebody else's gear. Because they said, well, we know you bump well. We want you to go out there. And it was mostly a squash match, but I still wanted to make sure that I left an impact. So, and that's where the guy had kind of like a Georgia Animal Steel kind of gimmick. It was weird because he called himself the Wolfman, but was hairless, completely bald, and everything else. It didn't make sense to me, but I digress. But I sold like he was the strongest guy in the world.
Wow.
And the next thing after that, they said, we need you to come up with a gimmick. We need it by next month. So I was like, oh shit. I did not expect to be in there so well. And the first gimmick I came up with, honestly, I was called Kale. K-A-L-E, Kale the Eternal. I was a mini Undertaker, for the lack of a better term. I just went goth because it was easy. It was cheap shit to put together. And I don't know why it took off. It worked in WXW. I was getting bookings elsewhere as it. I didn't really talk much. I wasn't really doing any promos because I was silent. I had a manager at the time. His name was Steve Tate. Great dude. He was called the Prophet. Full Kiss style makeup. It was great. And he did all my talking for me at the time and got bookings all over the place. And to me, it was just fun. It really didn't sink in of how well I was doing on the indies at that time. I'm just like, oh, I'm going with the guys. They're going to do another show.
Yeah. The funny thing, you know, you bring that up, and I'm like looking at you, and I'm like, well, he's a good-looking guy. He's Showtime Shane Black, you know. and you're doing like an Undertaker gimmick, and it sounds like so different from what I'm so used to seeing.
Honestly, it was. When I wanted to start doing Showtime Shane Black is because I got a little bit bored with the gimmick I had. I didn't have a whole lot of personality, and I've got a big mouth, and I like to entertain people. So when I approached off of Pops and said, "Hey, Pops, I want to change my gimmick. I want to go heel." And he goes, "Okay, son." He didn't even give me any stuff because he knew I could do it. And I didn't have a name yet. And literally, I got my name from an old WWE game. Because I'm like, what do I want to do? And I'm just making characters. And I'm like, oh, the name Showtime's in there. My best friend who would go to me to travel to shows and stuff goes, Showtime, Shane. Ooh, Black, you're Irish. Go with that. And it just stuck. And I went out there to be the biggest asshole I could in front of the crowd. That was my goal, is to piss off the entire audience as a heel. And unfortunately, I was very good at pissing everybody off. So then I just became a top heel for a long time for WXW until the audience themselves turned me face because they went from hating me to just starting liking the cool bad guy, and then it transitioned to a face.
Yeah, and that was one of the weird things back in the day. Was we grew up. Well, I should say I grew up in the '80s watching '80s wrestling. So I'm going to date myself here. I'm so used to hearing fans says, "Go, Ricky, go! Go, Robert, go!" The Rock and Roll Express, and the bad guys were the most hated, and the good guys were cheered. Even in my career, when I started taking off, and I was the cocky heel manager, it depended on the territory. Like if I was in New Jersey, Connecticut, or Delaware, or somewhere, and even with different promoters like Dennis Caluso, Tony Capone for the NAWA, and a couple others, I was always the bad guy and people hated me. But when I traveled to New York or New Jersey, people like, oh, we love this guy, and I'm like, even though I'm a bad guy. So let's go, and it's true what they say, the fans dictate your character. So going from a heel to a baby face, how was the transition? Did you feel more comfortable now doing this? Was it difficult to go from now you're the hated villain to once again you're the baby face?
Honestly, for me at that point, no, because I really didn't change a whole lot. The only thing I changed was my moveset. I stopped doing the choking and the cheap heat moves, and I went. My character didn't change much because Showtime Shane Black's always been a cocky jerk. But instead of being more of an ass or picking on the audience, I would just start doing the bad things that were cool, and then pointing to the crowd to get to pull them in. I would start doing stuff, and I remember at the time I was wearing some before all the kickbacks came out. I got myself a pair of hockey shins, ripped off the plastic so I wouldn't hurt anybody. But I had one gimmick where I'd take them off, put it on my forearm, look at the audience, and drop a forearm shiver to the guy. And the referee would yell at me because it's illegal, but it's not, because it's still part of my ring gear. But he would give me a warning. So then when I started doing it as a face, I'd put it on. I'd look at the audience, the referee would say no, and I'd say, but it's kind of legal. And it would go for a couple seconds, and the audience would just do it, and they'd cheer. So I did it as a heel, and I did it in a face, but I changed how I approached the move and drew the crowd in to have them say, yes, we want to see you do this. And that was the biggest thing I did, was change that.
Real quick, folks, if you folks saw that, there was the dogs that got inside the camera. They got behind Shane, and they're like, what is he doing? And then they walked off and went back over to the green screen. Yeah, they went through the green screen. So I'm seeing a dog's face pop up. That's usually what happens with mine. They'll interfere.
I got 4 of them running around. Oh,
sheesh. I got 3, and they're insane animals. So there's always scenarios that we all go through in professional wrestling. There's the heat that you experience. There is white heat, which I'm so familiar with. And then there's the baby face where everybody crowds around you and wants to get your autograph. I experienced white heat for one show. I was at Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I was doing a tryout. Tim Horner brought me down, and he wanted me to play the New York. Basically, they gave me the gimmick of being Paul Lee's nephew. Oh, and they explained that to me, and I'm like, yeah, but I would like to do my gimmick. No, kid, you got to do this. And Jimmy would say that, and because he ripped Paulie, and we beat up on Bob Armstrong, and the fans went ballistic, and we got literally chased out of the territory. I mean, driving in the car, still in our gear, and we had a pickup full of people like wanted to kill us legitimately. And it's a long story, and I'm not here for me. I'm here for Shane. But have you ever experienced something similar, like the heat or the baby face, something that kind of almost say, "Oh shit," you got to check to see you didn't get stabbed?
As soon as you're talking to, the story already came into my mind where I wanted to go, and it was in Allentown, PA, and I was set to win the WXW World Heavyweight Championship. I'd already had the TV title, so I was going to be a double champ. And the guy I was working was somebody I loved. I trained with him. His name was Jay Simpson. He went by the ring name Sugar. And he came to me with this idea because I was already a heel. And this was an idea I was wholeheartedly not comfortable with because a lot of the audience in Allentown was black and Hispanic folks.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this idea because he's a black dude. He went across the street to get a bucket of KFC chicken. He came out and he gives it to me. He goes, "I want you to come out and tell you. I see your face. You already know where this is going." So I went out there, and then he wrote this. I went out there with the bucket of chicken. Said, "I know you people like your chicken. I'll save you the ass beating. I'll give you the chicken. You give me the title, and we'll both walk away happy." The entire place, about 1,500 people, started chanting "asshole, asshole." I won the match, and I stuck a drum leg in his mouth. The place started throwing things in the ring, screaming at me. I went backstage. I'm like, they're pissed. Often the guy said, "Yeah, you're not leaving the arena. We're afraid you're going to get your ass kicked in the parking lot." So they waited, and I got escorted out to my car 2 hours after the show because I pissed off the whole crowd that much. Because even during the match, after I offered the bucket of chicken, every time I knocked him down, I'd make a reference to it, or I'd take a piece and I toss it out. It was also the first night I really hit an audience person with an insult, and I made a woman cry.
Oh, wow.
Because and I love to get that reaction out of people, and she was just very loud. And I don't remember exactly what she yelled, but I had a microphone in my hand. I said, "Ma'am, I can't believe you were able to get that out of your mouth because it usually looks like you're filled with donuts." Because she was a big girl. And she instantly looked like I punched her, and she started to cry. And I couldn't feel bad. I'm like, "Nope, I'm the bad guy. This is good." But I got so much heat that night between the shit I said to the audience, the bucket of chicken, and then winning the title. Yeah, I had to get walked out to my car that night.
And those are the stories that you hear. Again, with my experience, and it's scary because you never know how far fans are going to take this.
Right, because at this point, the whole cat wasn't out of the bag yet. That it was a show. It wasn't really known that it was an act and a stunt show.
Yep.
And they told me to crank up the showtime. And there's a few people that have told me that. And then, "Oh, God, I just told Shane to do," and they realize what they're going to say. And a couple years ago, a longtime buddy of mine is doing a great show in PA, down in Mifflinburg, PA. He calls it Slam Fest. And we were doing a conference the night before. And I looked at him and said, "Vince, what level of showtime do you want?" And he goes, "Oh, I want it all the way up." I said, "Do you realize what you're asking for?" He goes, "Yeah, it's good, it's good, it's good." And I knew it was going to be something, and he had a gimmick going on with someone else where this really good, I can't remember his name, and I apologize, it's embarrassing I don't, because he's a really good manager and worker right now. He was PWA 500. So his gimmick right now is going around challenging everyone else that's been in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500 list. And Vince, many years ago, since he's older as I am, was in like the 300s. And they're going back and forth on the microphone. And somebody finally asked me a question, and I went off. And I actually jumped on their gimmick saying, "You guys are going back over who's better, 500 or 300. And I said, "Let me know when you two losers break the 100, like I did." And the whole place went, and I see Vince go, "Oh God, I asked for this." I ripped into their gimmick that they were trying to use for the show, and he forgot that I had ranked pretty high once in PWI, and I let it loose. And later on, he goes, "I asked for that, but thank you," because the whole place started laughing and then booing me.
Yeah.
So when someone says they want heel Showtime and they tell me to crank it up, sometimes I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth. All I ask is, can I use profanity or not? And that's the line I won't cross.
Right. And during the 90s, the late 90s, profanity wasn't a big thing yet until the Attitude Era and later years. So you had to kind of control the profanity, especially for promotions that did have like regional television and all that. This was before like real internet, folks. The most funniest thing is I know from my experience, people have come to me like Smoky Mountain, and then when I tried out for Eastern Championship Wrestling before it became Extreme, Jason will come up to me and says, "Hey, Jason Knight, one of my mentors, will say, hey, they want you to do Joey Cornette." And I'm like looking at him, and I'm like, Jay, no. They just had me do Joe E. Dangerously. Now you want me? Oh yeah, they want to rip Jimmy. So obviously I did it for one show and that was it. Then I saw the hardcore super stuff, and that wasn't for me. But have you ever been in that same position when somebody will say to you, kid, you could be this person, and you didn't want to do it, or maybe you did do it and you said only one time, or did you always stick to the characters you created?
I've mostly always been the characters I created. No one's really asked me to do anything I really didn't want to do. But I wouldn't be opposed to doing weird shit, because to me, as long as I'm entertaining a crowd, I really don't care. And the gimmick I'm doing now, honestly, which is one of my characters from the XFW podcast, the Maniacal Glee, I did this to entertain myself because I just thought it was funny. And I did it as some one-offs. And it's taken off. And I don't know why. I'm just going out there to entertain myself. And I find myself now, what's the next thing I could do to either make the audience laugh or make the audience question it or get my opponent to break? And that's where I'm going now. But I've never been asked to do anything I didn't do or didn't want to do. But I've never been opposed to trying something new and doing something. So I've done a lot of weird shit in 30 years. And I've never had a problem with it. And maybe it just never bothered me. I've done some weird spots in matches and weird stuff, but yeah, no, I've never been asked to do anything I haven't done or didn't want to do.
You're very lucky with that, because the time frame from mine was 1990. So, and you had the promotions starting to rival, like you had Smoky Mountain starting up, then you had Eastern Championship Wrestling. So, since the two guys who ran it had something like, not really seriously, but they ripped one at each other, I just happened to be caught in the middle, because I was like, okay, he looks like this guy, but he looks like this, and I wasn't even going for that. I had my own look, but it was a lot of fun. So, like with me, you get to meet superstars, the legends, and you get in a match with them. Like for me, my guys would battle them, and I would be at ringside, and all my time I'm going, wow, I can't believe I'm in the ring with this person. Or should I say, like at ringside, involved in this match. Have you ever felt in that scenario that here you are, your character, you just got into the business, and across the ring from you, it's a superstar, legend, whatever, and you're like, oh shit, like, I can't believe I'm here.
More often than not, because being, and I don't want to sound not humble here, because one of the things I've always taken is being humble, not having a big head, and that's something I firmly believe in. When I've trained students, I told them the same thing. But being in the ring with The Rock when he was younger, with Christian Cage, Samu, and Rosie, and Umaga, I'm sitting there and I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. And it felt very odd, but at the same time, I was so damn grateful to be in there with these people who I'm watching on TV, and I'm in these smaller shows with. And just to double back on something you said earlier about not having your ring gear, the one time I forgot my ring gear was the Yokozuna Memorial Show. And I went to the show. It was soon after Rodney passed, and everyone was upset. We wanted to do something for the family and generate some funds and whatnot. Now, I went down there to help do the ring, to set up, but there was a lot of big names on this show. And in my brain, I'm like, I'm not on this. This is all big names. I'm not going to be on this show. I get down there, and Pop goes, "You bring your gear, right?" I'm like, "No. You've got The Undertaker on the show. You've got Chris Jericho on the show. You've got Eddie Guerrero on the show. Who the hell am I?" He said, "Well, you're working Doink the Clown tonight. Who was Ray Apollo, the second Doink?" I'm like, "Oh,
okay.
Yeah." So I drove from Allentown back up to Wilkes-Barre, back down to Allentown with my gear. And I smiling the entire time. Kai and Ty was there. Nicole Bass was there. I was on a card. And I was only one of the 3 people from WXW that got on the card. And I was so grateful to be on something that was so monumental to me in memoriam of Yokozuna on a card with nothing but WWF hierarchy and great people. And that was one of the times I'm like, holy shit, I'm in the locker room with these guys that I shouldn't have been in. And it was another humbling moment for me, because you will know this. When you go to a locker room, you're the new guy, you walk around and introduce yourself to everyone and shake their hands.
Yep.
That's just something you do in wrestling, and that's a lost art, I fully believe. And these guys came in, they're walking up to us and shaking our hand, introducing themselves to us. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm a big fish in a tiny pond. Now I'm in a lake with these week on, week off superstars, these big guys in this thing. And I was in the ring with them, in the locker room with them, and it was eye opening. And then just a few months down the road, we had another big show in Allentown. It was called Sports Fest. We did it every year. It was like our WrestleMania. And we've had Mick Foley at this show. The Rock was back. We had the entire Nation of Domination. Mark Henry. We legends constantly. And at that show, The Undertaker was there. It was him and Kane versus Farouk and Bradshaw at the time. And I was working Little Guido and the Great Fujita from Japan.
Yeah.
And again, another moment like, I don't belong in the ring with either one of these guys. And they were putting me over. And it was mind-boggling. But when The Undertaker came backstage and walked up to, "Hi, I'm Mark," and shook my hand, I don't remember if I even spoke any words other than, because here's this guy who I'm watching on TV every night, and to meet him is even bigger than seeing him on TV. And he walked up to me to introduce himself to me.
Right.
So I've had a lot of moments, luckily in my career, I went, holy shit, how did I get here?
Yeah.
You know?
And again, that's where everybody has a story, folks. Everybody's career starts off differently. And again, for me, I just fell into it, and meeting the right people, making sure, you just meet people. And at the same time, I'm like being asked to go to conventions to sign autographs, and I'm seeing all of these legends. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm just local Joe. And I'm here signing autographs with these guys. And you said it, when you go in the locker room and they have veterans in there, and you even if it's new people, you go and shake everybody's hand, introduce themselves properly. And that is a wrestling, that is the golden rule in wrestling when you get into a locker room. And I've seen kids don't do that anymore. They're just here for their match, and that's it. Screw you. I don't care who you are. And it's a shame to see that. But yeah, I'm gonna toss a question to you, and it happened to me, and I need to ask you this: have you ever been, quote unquote, initiated as a professional wrestler? Give you my example. First major match that I ever involved with, and we were in the locker room. I was with Rockin' Rebel, Jason Knight, former ECW TV champion, and a couple of the guys. and it was like, guys, Joey's new, and I'm like maybe like 160. I was still a skinny young punk, right? I had the long hair, I had almost the same look I have now, and Rebel snuck up behind me, put me in a full Nelson. Jason took my T-shirt, pulled it over my head, and you know where this is coming?
Oh, I do.
Open hand chop, and I had the mark right across my chest.
Yep.
And they wanted to make sure you didn't cry, so I took it and I says, "Give me." Is that all you got? Hit me with another in my mind. It says, "You idiot!" And chop, and it's like, well, that's my initiation into the locker room and into that talent. Have you ever?
Almost.
Go ahead.
Almost the same thing. I did a battle royal. It was early in my career. It was a few weeks after that match where I didn't know I was working. It was a battle royal at WXW in their little arena, and it was a hardcore battle royal. And I was told to go in, do a couple things, get tossed out. I came out. It was one of those ones where everyone started the ring at once, so it wasn't like a Royal Rumble kind of thing.
Right.
And I planned on not being in there long because the guys who were already established characters are getting all their spots in. And I remember working with a guy and say, "All right, just throw me out." And as I'm getting ready to go out, I feel someone grab the back of my tights and pull me back in, and it's Samu. And he goes, "No, brother, you ain't leaving yet." And I got the chop, just like you talked about, but he didn't pull my shirt up. He just tore. So I had a tank top kind of gimmick. He tore it, and I got 3 chops. And then I'm like, all right, I'm getting thrown out. And he did it to me again, pulled me back in, and then this son of a bitch hit me with a VCR over the head. And he said to me, "Welcome to the family, kid." And then he threw me out. So yeah, the chops seem to be one of the biggest initiations for all the new guys. And to me, it's almost like a rite of passage. Yeah. You know, as long as you haven't screwed up, a couple chops is a welcome to the show, welcome to this. Because I've also seen some guys who have gotten the absolute shit knocked out of them for doing wrong. Yeah. You know, so yeah, Samu himself initiated me with some chops and a VCR over the top of the head.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen both sides. I've seen, and people, you know, Chuck Williams, Rockin' Rebel. I'm not even going to go into his history. Just like Chris Benoit, I look at the wrestler, not who the person was. You know what happened. They were great to me. They took awesome care of me in the business. Never got stiffed on a payday. Never didn't. They took care of me. But when they did those chops, I'm like literally like looking to try to pull the shirt down, and I'm still there, and I'm wiping my tears because I'm trying to get the shirt down, and they still got me up, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead, hit me. Worst thing to say, but that's how you broke into business. And I saw, you know, somebody fucked up a lot of moves, and this is going to lead into another question for you. And he did a bunch of moves, and he was stiffing the person. I can't remember who the person was but he stiffed the person really bad, and when they got to the locker room, that dude beat the hell out of him, and then explained to him why he's getting the shit stuff out of him. Have you ever seen anything like that in your time, like in the locker room or after a show, where a wrestler just, you know, screwed up so badly that the talent, you know, the other talent had to like take care of business?
I've seen it in the ring and outside the ring. Dave Bautista, when he started with us. I always like to tell the story how I helped train Dave. He knocked out this tooth. It's gone because Dave clotheslined me with the biceps are bigger than my skull. But someone, he was still going under the name Leviathan.
I remember.
And Dave was always an awesome dude. Even after he made it to the big times, when he would come to the Wilkes-Barre area and do a show, we'd bump into each other. It was always a hug and a shake. He remembered me for years ago, and he shouldn't remember me. He's a superstar now. But there was a guy that pissed him off in the ring, and the guy left the arena right afterwards. The next day of training. Now, this was all low-key. Dave was there. He's doing the training. This guy walks in. He walked up and jacked him across the jaw and knocked him right out with one shot. he was waiting for that dude to show up at the arena, and because the guy was stiffing everybody in the match, and he'd hit Dave several times really hard, right on top of the head with some elbows, and it left marks and a big welt. And if you're a wrestler or you know the term receipt.
Oh yeah.
And that was really the only one I remember seeing outside the ring. Everything else I seen inside the ring. I've given quite a few inside the ring, and I never want to, but when I was earlier in the year, Ray Apollo is one of the guys that showed me this. He goes, if you don't give back that receipt, you're going to lose respect, and people know they can stiff you and just get away with it.
Yep.
And one of the worst I ever got was with Homicide. He was working with some guys in Jersey, and this guy named Crazy Ivan.
Yep.
They were supposed to come in the ring and hit me with a mask and make me lose the match, but instead they hooked me and said, go with it. And I said, go with what? And they gave me a brain buster, and I was out. They gave me a concussion. And I was out. I took about a month or two off, and then I had a match with Homicide again in Allentown on our WXW TV, and Pops pulled me aside, and he goes, you know what you need to do. And I said, okay. So I finished the match with a super kick, and I laid that shit in as hard as I could. And after the match, I got a handshake. I earned that.
Yeah.
So he knew why the receipt came. But because I gave it to him, I got the respect, because I realized don't screw around with him, because I'm going to give it back just as I got. I got no problem working tight, but I never go out of my way to stiff anybody, and I expect someone to do the same thing.
Exactly.
If I get slugged, there's a solid chance I'm going to no-sell, and you're taking an elbow right to the mouth.
Exactly. And it's definitely like you call it. It's a receipt. So it's like, hey, the first time, it's quit the shit. You know, second time, it's like, okay, now I'm going to hit you right back. Third time, we're really going to fight. You bring up Homicide. He was, during my days, he was one of the kids. He was, I'm saying it real nice because he's a nice guy, at least to me. He was one of the punk kids in the neighborhood, and he would see the show. He got into wrestling, and he's a former WWO talent. How funny that is. And he's, we've done some crazy stuff in Brooklyn, New York. We ran a couple of legit shows, and we did it old school. And he was part of a group that did the spoof of Nation of Domination. So they were Nation of Immigration with a couple of people. So, some of those guys, you could tell when they travel around, you meet them, and it's funny because, like I knew Crazy Ivan, I knew a couple of the other guys, and Homicide, really learned the business. If you would have seen him before, he was a hardcore kid, still learning, and I said, dude, learn the business, and you could go somewhere. And he did. He got to travel around and all that. We're gonna go. I'm gonna bring up a question for you, and some people answer it, some people don't. And I know usually the responses I get are really hilarious. We all have a road story, and you know where this is going. Look at a big smile on his face already. We all have road stories, crazy as they are, especially when you ran with a group that started in Eastern Championship Wrestling. So, let's hear a Showtime Shane Black road story.
Every time I get asked this, I go back to the same one. That luckily, I was not involved in this rib. I just happened to be driving this night because when I was doing wrestling full time, I had a van, because I'd always say, okay, I need to book a room. And if it was summertime, I'd pocket the money and stay in the van. I had to pull out a couch, a small mini fridge. My Nintendo was in there. It was great. And I was driving back from Pittsburgh with about 8 guys in the back. We had this great referee. His name is Sam. And he was the smallest guy in the locker room. He always wanted to be a wrestler, so he did a little mask gimmick. But Sam was lucky if he was 125 pounds. And he was always the butt of a joke. And we're driving. We're coming back from Pittsburgh, and a bunch of guys are like, we need to stop the van. I'm like, what are you doing? And what's going to happen to me? Why is everyone bothering me? I'm like, you don't screw with the guy driving everybody home. And they're like, Sammy was the first guy to pass out. I'm like, oh, fuck, now I know where this is going. So they said, all right, we'll let you know when. All of a sudden, I get a pound on the shoulder. I slam the brakes on as hard as I can in the middle of the PA turnpike and cut over. So Sammy rolls forward and is like, what the hell? The doors fly open. They drag him out into the street. And Jack Molson screams, Sammy, you're getting into the ass tonight. And they all drop to their shorts. And now Sammy is terrified, thinking he's gonna get screwed tonight. So now there's 5 guys running in circles on the PA turnpike chasing this 120-pound kid. I'm crying in the driver's seat. I'm not getting out of the van. These lunatics are doing their own shit. But the terror in this kid's eyes was legit. And he'd known us already this fight for 5 years. But he didn't pick up that it was a rib right away.
Yeah, well,
it was. I felt bad, but at the same time, I couldn't stop laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Well, there are times you don't even know it's a rib until it actually happens, and
yeah.
So those are the road stories that, like, especially when you hang out with a group of guys. I got to meet, luckily, and I got to meet Axel Rutten when he started, and Ian and a couple other workers. And they would do crazy stuff. And I remember, like, Jason, we would go from a show. He would nudge me and say, pull over at the White Castles. So that was his thing. He needed to have White Castles. He wanted the protein from the White Castles. And if you don't know, folks, what a White Castle is, it's a small little burger place. It was a franchise. I don't even know if some are available still. I know they sell the stuff in Walmart and all that.
Oh, they're still out there. There's a couple in Jersey.
Oh, cool. So he goes in there and he says, Joey, come with me, right? And he's putting on his gear. He has his gear, his jacket, and I'm in my gear. And I don't know what the hell he's doing. And we're walking into there. And he takes the ECW TV title, flicks it over his shoulder. And he says, I'm the ECW TV champion. I want some burgers right now. Right? And the girl's looking at him weird. And I'm like, hey, Toots, come on. Don't you know who this is? This is the sexiest man alive. And it was funny. They would do ribs like that. And it was crazy. Now, I know you're married, so I don't want to go into the other question that everybody calls avoids. Ring rats. But we're not going to,
That's behind me.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. To give you an idea. Doing the mask gimmick that I'm doing now, I've got a bunch of co-workers that found out what I do, and they're coming to the shows now, and they're having a ball. And one of them is a very pretty younger woman. And after the show, she comes up to me and says, hey, you want us to wait outside? You want to wait here? I said, no, wait outside. I'll meet you guys outside. Jack Molson, who's known me for 30 years, goes, dude, you're married. What are you doing? Not again. I said, dude, she's a friend of mine. But they automatically went to the old days when I was Showtime Shane Black.
Oh.
And I had a lot of fun in my past. But the fact that he still thought, like, that's not me anymore. I am happily married. But yeah, that was a big thing in the 90s.
Oh God, the ring rats, and worst rib I've ever had. And here's the funny thing. Welcome, Big Time Wrestling Fan 1984 on Twitch. Thanks for dropping in. One of the funniest things I've had happen was I'm in bed with my wife, and the guys used to, like, they knew they could call me for anything. Like, if somebody was in trouble and they needed a ride, they would call me, and if I could, I'll go pick them up. So this particular, and I always hit speakerphone. And guys, this was before cell phones, so you had the phone.
We didn't have these back in the day.
Yeah, we didn't. Thank God.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Rockin' Rebel calls me up, and he says, Joey, I got someone who's dying to meet you and want to screw you. And what? And my wife's lying next to me, and she's looking at me, and Tammy Sitch is on the phone.
Oh, shit.
Because he's at a show, and she's there, right? And she starts saying, hey, baby, you want to have some sunny days? And I'm like, If you could see my face, and my wife's giving me this look, and I'm like, you know, like the whole Abbott and Costello routine, like, it's not me, it's them. And I'm like, and they're pushing it and pushing it to the next level. And I got to meet her, and she was, back then, Sonny had just left WWE, or F at the time.
She was a shit stirrer.
Yes.
She was a shit stirrer. Because I worked with her. Let me see. It was down in Frackville, PA. She was there, and she was there with Chris Candido, Goldust, and Terry Runnels were there. And we're sitting there, and at the time I had really, really long hair. And Terry Runnels said, "Hey, let me braid your hair." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm an idiot. I'm happy as shit. And I'm sitting there, and all the boys are walking by, and they're looking at me, and they're smiling at me because I'm in my glory. I'm sitting on the floor between Terry Runnels' legs getting my hair braided. And Tammy Sitch walks by and goes, "Oh, don't poke him." I'm like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? And Terry just shuffles up a little bit closer. She goes, "Well, I got this pierced." And she pulls her shit to the side to show me her clip piercing. Here I am in my mid-20s going, oh my God.
Yeah.
And now, and they knew what they did because now I can't stand up because I'm in spandex.
Yeah.
And they're laughing at me now as I'm sitting there, and Sitch knew exactly what she had done. And Runnels was laughing. They're ribbing me. I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I'm getting to see her crotch. But now I'm like, I got way too excited, and I can't stand up in this locker room. So I had to sit on the floor for another 20 minutes to calm myself down and think about baseball.
Yeah, Dime Drawer, welcome. Dime Drawer 4, thanks for joining us on. He's on YouTube right now. And he says Craven Moorhead was signed to a contract by WWE, and some comparing him to a young Rock. We get to see, in our time, we get to see guys who are compared to other legends. Have anybody ever, and I joked, and we're going to go into the virtual gaming part in a few minutes, but has anybody ever said you're just a Shawn Michaels wannabe? Or have they really given you that support?
I've gotten that. I've been called the love child of Rhino and Chris Jericho. One of the biggest jokes I got is when I was doing the goth gimmick is at the one of our sports fest. The first time I got to meet Mick Foley, he came up and made a joke to me, walks up and goes, "Mark, you shrunk," and shook my hand. And the joke went right over my head. He was calling me a little, Mark Calloway. And then I went, "Oh yeah, that's funny." And then I felt like such an ass because I didn't get the joke.
Right.
And him and Mark Henry are laughing at me. But I've been called the Kmart Shawn Michaels. I've been called the Chris Jericho, because I'm built weird. I'm not tall, but I'm wide, and I've always been thick. So I got called a little Rhino. I've been called so many things, but I don't take it personal. To me, if they're calling me and referencing me, someone who's now a legend, I'm taking it as a compliment. You can try to make it an insult. That's not going to bother me at all.
Right. Like, for me, it's like, for everybody keeps saying, "Oh, he's Paul E." Like, I'm Paul E. And I'm like, Paul Heyman. And I'm like, no, I'm not bald and fat. And they says, no, ECW version. And I'm like, I said, God damn it, like, try to do Paul's voice. And it got over real well. And I remember Rebel and Jason, like, pulled me into the Eastern Championship locker room. Todd Gordon was still in charge. He had a couple people, and I didn't know, and they were like, Joey, tell Todd how you were Joey Cornette, right? Or Joey Dangerously. And I'm like, guys, like, come on, tell. And Todd is on the rib, and he goes, yeah, go ahead, tell me, right? And I'm like, I am taking it to the extreme, baby. I am the psycho yuppie and all this stuff, and I'm doing all this. Somebody walks up behind me, says, well, that's a damn good impression, kid. And I turn, I'm like, oh, I'm getting hit by trash cans and everything else under the sun. So, yeah, it's fun when you get compared to people because at least they acknowledging you, they notice your skills and all that. And it is one big, it's a cool thing. It's sometimes when you're in the business and they can compare you to somebody else, it's not really, unless it's a horrible wrestler, You don't want to become. You don't want to be compared to Jake the Milkman Milligan or something like that.
Right. And that's the way I always took it, because you always try to get inspiration from somewhere. And Shawn Michaels is always one of my greatest, the wrestler. Him and Randy Savage. So a lot of the stuff I do, it's a bits. I would take pieces of what I saw Savage and Michaels do, and I would incorporate that in the Showtime Shane Black. And my in-ring gear a lot of times was always black and red. Those were my colors. So that's where one of my singlets kind of looked like Rhinos, but not exactly. So every time someone make that reference, I'm like, I'm okay with this. That means if you're seeing me out there performing and it reminds you of these guys, that's a win for me.
Exactly. And it helps your career. And sometimes it hurts your career, but most of the time it helps, because now they got someone that they can try to spoof with and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's no bad publicity.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's go into. So you've done a lot of the. You've done a lot of the indie scenes. Have you ever been in any of the other major promotions? Like at the time, I think it was, you had Smoky Mountain, you had USWA, you had Eastern Championship Wrestling. Then it became Extreme later on. You had WWF still, and then WCW. Have you ever traveled in any of those circles? I know the term is jobber or enhancement talent. So I don't know have you ever been in any of those?
I've been in some bigger promotions. At the time, I didn't realize they were bigger promotions or bigger territories. I did have 2 tryouts with WWE. Both times I was told I was too short, because back in the 90s, they only wanted the giants.
Yeah.
They only wanted the big guys. And I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm confident enough in my own skills. If I was 15 to 20 years younger, I'm pretty sure I could land a spot now, given my work rate back in the day and all the compliments I used to get from everybody. So I'd never got a chance to work with ECW, and I got to work with a lot of ECW guys. I would get to a lot of shows, and it always seemed like I was 5 minutes too late where the spot would get filled.
Okay.
Because I felt always kind of, if I walked back and I'd go up to the crowd, the bookers, like, I didn't want to be a dick. I didn't want to be pushy or seem like I was arrogant. And I honestly say that was a mistake now, that I probably could have got on some much bigger cards. And I still had a lot of cards I was on that were really big. But I think if I had been able to put aside the humbleness that I have, I could have broken a couple more barriers. I always, when I did a show for MTV, it was that whole "you want to be a pro wrestler" thing.
Okay.
I did that, and that was one of the first times I'm like, all right, I gotta put aside the humble, and I gotta say screw my friends that were there with me, and I went full bore, and I got to the finals of that. But they went with a guy. Luckily, it was still one of the guys I was there with. He went by Zoltan, the Barbarian. He won the whole thing, and it was one of those times I was happy I didn't win it, because they told us if you win, you're going to do a match for the audience. They had him wrestle a blow-up doll.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was embarrassing. And he got his tryout, but they didn't sign him for whatever reason. I don't know. But I did work for a lot of bigger promotions that I didn't know back in the day were as big as they were. I did work for Ring of Honor a couple times before they really blew up. But I think I missed some opportunities because I didn't want to be an arrogant ass and push myself through the door.
Yeah, we got questions. I'm gonna go real quick over with it because we still got 2 more segments to go. Big Wrestling Fan says, guy in the sweatshirt looks like a smaller, older Alexander Hammerstone. And he says, how was he too short ever meet Coco Beware? He's like 5 feet nothing. So
yeah, there were some guys that just managed to get through being smaller. I felt if I got a chance with WCW, I probably could have got in because Billy Kidman was my height. But at the time, the Samoans didn't have the ties with WCW. They were more with WWE at the time.
Yeah.
And when Doc Hendricks at the time was one of the guys doing a lot of the booking and the talent relations, and said, "Kid, you got everything we need. You're just not big enough for us right now."
Right. And
it was the only thing I couldn't work on. I couldn't get taller.
Right.
You know, Even they took Dave Bautista, and even Smooth Tommy Suede, who wound up being in the movie The Wrestler, got multiple tryouts. And I mean, Tommy was jacked.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have been pressure about. He got told the same thing. You're just not as big as we want you to be right now. So I don't know if it was just at that time who the talent relations were. Only wanted bigger guys. They only wanted the big talk. Because I mean, Vince. Vince wants those monsters.
Yeah, he wanted the jacked up, built big monsters.
Right.
And
so there was very few smaller, shorter guys on the roster. And yeah, Coco Beware was one of those rare guys that was there. I just think at the time when I was doing the tryouts, they didn't want the shorter guys anymore.
Well, and I think, bringing up Coco Beware, I think he was more the gimmick, even though he was a good wrestler back in the day, and even, at that time in WWE. I keep saying EF. I'm going to say a lot of Fs if I could. But he was a gimmick. He had the bird and all that, so that's what really sold him. Yep. And Selena had a question for you. She just sent me a list of questions. Selena, I gotta pick some. I can't do all of them. And yes, he's married. Leave him alone. He said, never mind. To describe her, it's a female vampire with big boobs. She what's her name? Martinez. I forgot her name. So I can't. She's actually. Yeah.
My mind went back to Elvira.
Yeah, there you go, with the hair down instead of up. And she actually wants to come in to do WWO, so don't be surprised. So one of the things, now thank you, Selena. I forgot I got to relook at your question again. She says, okay, have you ever considered singles or tag team? And if you did prefer a tag team, did you ever hook up to become a tag team person in any company?
I've mostly, almost always done singles. I've done a lot of factions and groups, but I've never been full tag team. But right now, with the gimmick that I'm doing now, I'm actually going to start doing a lot of tags under the Maniacal Glee mask. A longtime friend of mine, and we're making jokes now because he broke into the business shortly after I did, and we were sitting reminiscing, talking about how many times we think we've wrestled over 30 years, and we're in the hundreds with wrestling each other. And now we're both older, so now we're both doing character comedy kind of gimmicks.
Yeah.
And we just happen to do it at the same time, so now we're going to put our two characters together and start working as a tag team. So this will be my first real run into tags. I've done them intermittently, but never anything full-time. It's almost always been singles for me.
That's cool. I managed in my time a tag team. They were the Nightmare Express because Joey Knight. So they were the Nightmare Express. The guys used to be WWE jobbers, and they would go on there. So, but they were with me with Jason Rebel and Eddie, and that was the weirdest group you can ever see. And I'm 5'10", almost 11, and the guys, Jason is about my height. Rebel was a little bit taller, and the two other, Todd and Billy, were 6-footers. I mean, big 6-footers. So I looked like the little odd man out in the group. And Eddie was like a little bit taller than me, but he was always the drunk. So we used to joke, Joey, you're the sober and intelligent one out of the group. And I go, oh, great.
One of the longest running factions I was in is funny because it was myself, Smooth Tommy Suede, Mark the Body Rowan, and our manager at the time, Dylan Dean, and it was a group called Evolution, where we fought against Leviathan, a.k.a. Dave Bautista, for a long time. Then Dave went on to WWE for a couple years later, and Evolution showed up.
Gee, thanks,
we always
Dave.
make that joke to him when we talk to him online.
And again, a lot of these guys that you see, when you're in the ring with them, you're trying out, you're not expecting them to be, you could probably see it that they're going to move on to the next best, bigger things and better. Have you ever sat down and you've been in a match with a guy who's brand new, and all of a sudden, years later he becomes a legend, like you said, Dave Bautista? And have you ever done that? And just like, okay, you're looking at someone across the ring, and it's like he looks like he got it, and then years later he becomes a superstar.
Orange Cassidy.
Really?
I wrestled Orange a lot when he was Fire Ant from Chikara. And I knew the kid always had something special about him. Dave Bautista, obviously. One person right now I am super, super excited with. I know he's in the Performance Center, is Lance Anawai.
Yeah.
I've known Lance since he was 5 years old. He's always had the right mentality. He's always had the right train of thought. He's very humble, but he's good. And I can't wait till he's on the main roster. I'm expecting him to show up in the Bloodline storyline at some point. And I know when Samu said he got signed, I felt excited because he's always been such a good kid. And that, when I see him on there, I know I'm going to get stupid excited for the kid when he gets there. So, I used to wrestle Billy Kidman back when when I first started with the Samoans, because he was still there before him and Mortis went over. So I've got the opportunity to see a lot of guys go in, and like Rosie and Jamal before they hit big with WWE. They weren't huge at the time. They've been doing like the Samoan SWAT team with Paul Lee at the time, and so I knew those guys before they hit it big. So I've watched a lot of people I knew really well get it big, and it does make me smile to see people I know really hit it. It makes me feel proud.
Yeah, we have another thing from a big wrestling fan. He says, "Guy in sweatshirt," and he knows you, so I'm just gonna put it that way. He knows you. I love to see you have a match with a big guy with the short promos, even if it's on the game. Both of you promos, it's like a real match you're going into, and which he was referring to as KB3. In fact, Shane defended his WWO virtual title against KB3 in a couple of matches. We're gonna jump now from real wrestling to the virtual wrestling. So virtual wrestling basically is like an eFed, folks. We put together virtual matches via the video games like WWE 2K24, 25, and we put it all together, and we basically create our characters. So Shane is part of that. He runs his own, and he's with us on the WWO virtual side. So, Shane, how did you get into that? Like, for me, back in the day, I was doing a game stream, and Chris from TKWA sends me a message. "Hey, I see you like wrestling and blah blah blah, and you talk about it. Come on in." And I'm like, so I'm thinking I'm being booked for a real show. And next thing I know, he's like, "Oh, you got to come on Discord or Skype or whatever." I think at the time Discord, and we're going over everything, and I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, like, what the hell is this? And honestly, I'll be honest with you, and I've told this to a couple of them, I didn't take it serious because, they play wrestling, okay, fine. After a while, since I got to know everybody, then I took it a little bit more serious. Look where I am now. So how we all have like that story when we go from real to the virtual world of gaming. So how did you get involved in that? Was it something that, you're done with the business, or you were still in the business and maybe somebody brought it up to you? How did it work?
Back when I was starting wrestling, I've always been a video game fan. I've always been a board game fan. Myself and two of my friends actually produced our own wrestling board game, XFW, Extreme Fantasy Wrestling, and we sold it locally. And it didn't do great, but we had a lot of fun with it. And we had 30-some characters. We copyrighted all the names, including my own, Showtime Shane Black. And, we didn't do it a lot. Right now it's actually uploaded on a website called BoardGameGeek.com. My partner uploaded the whole thing so people can see it on there. And it was very similar to that Galaxy Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
Those little small cards. Ours was just more in depth. And we didn't do anything with it for a long time. And then I've always played wrestling games because I used to sometimes use them to work out spots for myself. And then I realized, getting good at the games, I can actually, instead of just going in and try to win the match, I would play the games and try to do spots like a real wrestling match since I was already doing wrestling.
Right.
And then a longtime friend of mine started getting into game streaming, and I said, "How do you do this? It's just fun to watch." And he told me about it, and I set it up, and I was talking with my partners that actually did the board game, and I said, "You know, we can put XFW digitally." And that's what I just started doing. I took all the characters that we've had on pen and paper, generated them all the games. I had all the storylines and backgrounds because we had these character sheets, and it listed the backgrounds right on there. So I just started taking over the role as commentator and just playing the game and doing it that way. And it just, I didn't expect to have as much fun with it as I have. I didn't expect to be doing it for this long. But I'm happy people watch it. It's now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and TikTok. And now it's literally generated another character for me to do in real life. So it's just been fun for me. Some nights I have 10 viewers, some nights I have a couple hundred. It's just fun for me to do. And I've had a couple offers to, hey, do you want to come do commentary on our shows? Because they hear me do the commentary on my stream, and I've gotten decent at it. And now I get a lot of gags at work because when I have to make an announcement over my building, I'll go into my announcer or game show host voice and get my entire team to laugh. But yeah, it started off as a board game, and now it's just this digital wrestling promotion that I like to book and run.
And you could tell everybody the name of the company and where do you book it?
The name is XFW, or Extreme Fantasy Wrestling. There's a main page on Facebook. You can also find it on bloodsword6.com. We have all our links on there. You can find all our pages on. It's on under my Bloodsword 6 streaming LLC, where we'll be doing small shorts and some fan films and stuff like that. But it all falls under that window. And XFW has just been a lot of fun. I get a lot of fans who want to submit characters. I've got boys in the locker room say, "Why am I not on your show?"
You know, we're getting actual questions like, is the board game still available for sale? So
right now, no. But if they want to get it, they can actually go to BoardGameGeek.com, and you can search Extreme Fantasy Wrestling, and you can find the very, very basic, rudimentary stuff we used to do. And I was a graphic art and designer, and I always wanted to draw for Marvel Comics. I never got the opportunity to. But these were early drawings we did. I wish I had one here. I bring it up on screen, but it's in the back room away from me. But my partners and I were actually trying to do a new version of it and almost make it more like a card game. So we're still working on that. So if I can get that out there, I plan on doing another version of it.
Okay, cool. Because then we have a couple of people that says that they want to buy the board game already. So you got some customers already. So let's go into, so we met via TKWA, and again, I know I saw you and I said, damn, this guy's got it, he's got it. And I remember saying that to Chris, and I'm like, he says, well, he's a legit wrestler. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, cool, and I'm laughing because I'm like, what the hell is he doing here? That he's got a great gimmick. What the hell? And we laughed about it. And when we switched and now we're WWO, I said, we got to get Shane in here. And we got to build him because the promos were great. And I say that being my character's the evil owner of the company. And I will sit back and I'm like, okay. And sometimes, and again, I don't know how you do your show. I do a run sheet. It's like I run it like a real legit wrestling company.
Yep.
So I run everything down. I'm like, okay, how can we get Shane to here when he just started here? And we had to build up. And every time, folks, I will send him a message, send this man a message, and I'm like, hey, I need a promo done. Can you please shoot me a promo? You against LG, King LG. And LG is like a little he was his little Spanish kid. Now he's in his teenage stage. And I would say, okay, hit me with this promo. This is what's going on. This was happening. and I would sit back and I will have to watch the promo to judge it where it will go in the show. There's my dogs. So, sounds like the pound. So, so the funny thing is, you know, the way it's booked, and I would sit down and listen to the promo. Man, dude, you hit the one-liners. You would hit all the crazy stuff. Like, just you could know you can needle LG. And we would sit down when we had to do a joint promo, and LG says, I can't stop laughing. And we wouldn't be able to stop laughing because I would show him the promo, he would, you know, try to follow through. So before I continue this, Big Time Wrestling says it's a card game like the old WWF Raw deal card version. Is that what they were asking about the board game?
For the board game, just to answer that question, we've gone through a couple different versions of it, and what we're trying to do now is make it very different. So what we're trying to do currently is we're trying to give we're trying to make it almost like for any gamers out there, almost like a commander deck from Magic, where you've got your character card that has specific things on there that the wrestlers are better at, good at, and then you can build a deck of moves, signature moves, and effects. So that's what we're trying to do right now, and we're trying to get it very balanced before we can release it.
First time ever. It's good to see him. I haven't seen him in years. Trent Killer Syndicate, Chris.
Oh, Chris is here.
Yeah. Motherfucker, you've been missing. I miss you. I miss talking to you. I know we have a history, but I hope everything's cool. He says, I knew Showtime Shane Black was the cornerstone of TKWA. Very talented, very professional, and very reliable. And that's how I know him too as well. And I mean, I sit back and the promos. And here's the thing: we have the good guys, bad guys of our group. Shane is the tweener because I don't know if that was on purpose that you're the tweener because you're kind of like, you know, like you don't like Mr. G, but you definitely hate his son, but you're willing to work with Mr. G and all that. And it's very, it's one of those things that when I heard your promos, and again, I got to listen to everybody's promos, I'm like, God damn motherfucker hit this out of the ballpark, and I don't know how to respond to this without busting out laughing.
That came out because, like I said, when I was doing full heel Showtime, and the audience was making me face because they just started digging the arrogance and the cockiness that I had. That really helped me with my promos back in the day, being a smartass, having the one-liners, having the comebacks, because when you well know, when you go out to do a promo, they give you specific things you have to hit on, but they give you a little bit of room to ad-lib. Yeah. So I would always take those opportunities and use that. And in the days doing the TKWA, because when Chris did it, he would judge who wins the matches on the promos.
Right.
I honestly started feeling a little bit guilty because I was winning a lot, but I'm like, I have an unfair advantage over he just has some regular game streamers. They didn't have any promo experience, and there were guys that are going, I'm going to win today. I'm going to kick your ass. They didn't have any energy or life in those promos. And I'm messaging these guys going, if you want help, I'll help you. This is what you need to do. You need to have some life. You need to get loud. You need to fire up. And they didn't have that. And because sometimes people get a little uncomfortable streaming into a microphone, streaming into a camera, or putting on this big
character,
bigger than life character.
Yeah, you can see me screaming when I'm playing a Nintendo game, streaming it. Damn Super Mario 3, you know.
It's tough to separate that from reality, where you have to take whatever personality you want. You gotta crank it up. You've gotta elevate yourself to get. You can't be afraid to make fun of yourself or make yourself look silly to do these things. And I just did a commercial for a company a few weeks ago, and I had to wear a ridiculously large Super Troopers mustache, and In a whole thing, I had to sign an NDA, so I can't talk too much about it. But the whole day I'm backstage, I am in this character just making the people backstage laugh because I'm like, well, I'm wearing this. I look ridiculous, but that's what they want. So I'm going to have fun with it. So I'm backstage just cutting promos myself just to make people laugh, but in a police officer kind of getup. So that's where I was going with it. And it's the same thing with wrestling. They give you the script. You have to own it. You got to run with it. Even if you got to say stuff you don't like, you got to bring it out. And
oh yeah.
A lot of guys in TKWA didn't have that experience. So I felt bad for a while that I was the champ because of the promos for a little while. I like what WWO does because it's more in lines of regular wrestling. We're booking storylines. We're doing the same thing I do with XFW. So I mean, if at the time when someone says, "Hey, okay, we're gonna make someone else champion," I will feel guilty.
yeah. The most funniest thing is, and the reason we went storyline mode with this, TKS Trent Killer Chris says Shane was probably the greatest promo in TKWA, always consistent. I remember me and Chris used to sit down together. I'm like, God damn it, he hit another promo out the window, and I'm like, okay, well, he's gonna be champion for eternity, you know. And it was never.
I felt bad.
And there were times I've sat there, and I'm not going to mention names of the other guys who were in there, but we would joke and we would say that, and you know, Chris will tell you. One day I'm sitting there, and I was like, and my bad on my part, I didn't take it serious because I didn't think it. You know, I was like, you know, real wrestling going into fake. You know, like, well, it's always been not scripted, but going into the video game version. And then when one day we're doing commentary, he says, "Oh, Justice Sculpture Knight is the GM now of TKWA." I forgot what it was, and I'm like, "Really?" I didn't, and we didn't rehearse that, and I didn't know, so I'm like, had to wing it. So I'm like, okay, now I got to turn my shit up a notch, and I'm in my character mode where I'm comfortable in. And the funny thing is, once you would come out, we would watch the promos and we had to judge, and I would have to try to sell the guys. You know, I would have to try to that your opponent was gonna beat your ass and all that, and you do a big promo. I'm like, well, that went out the window, and I was, and I'm like, and some of the guys were like that. It's like, yeah, I'm going to kick your ass and I'm gonna win this title. And I'm like, motherfucker, I wish I could do a better job. And
yeah, they wouldn't have any life or there was no energy in it.
Yeah, and same thing now. It's so hard to find people who have that drive to do it. And there's a couple of the folks that are now learning with WWO. They now learn how to do better promos. We're gonna take another 2 more questions. Big Wrestling Fan 1984 says, so how hands-on are you? Do you micromanage people to script out promos, or do you only say, I need ABC said, and give them free reign? Are you talking to me or are you talking to Shane? I'm not too sure there.
I don't have any promos in XFW because I don't use any real folks, so that's probably going to be towards you.
Okay. For me, I say, like for Shane, okay, Shane, Saturday Night Slam and Stream is the show. You're taking on King LG. It's for your title. Hit me with a promo. Shane is one of the easiest guys to work with because you can give him ABC and you don't have to go further down the list of XY till XYZ. So you can say 3 things and he will dream it up and then shoot it back. And
the only thing I ever do is I'll come back and I do this, Joe, a lot. I'm like, what do you specifically want? Because I do the same thing in being booked in real. I'm like, what do you want me to say? Is there anything you need specific me to hit on? Because if you give me ABC, I'm going to run with it.
Oh yeah.
But is there something specific you need? And I always ask that because the bookers have something in mind.
Right.
The people running the show have something in mind. I want to make sure I'm giving exactly what they want. Terry
3G says, where is the D minutes and her ice cream? If you don't follow the joke, every time we see Jocelyn when she's on HWR or some other podcast that we do, she's always eating ice cream, or she goes off and gets ice cream. She's also, and I love her to death. I think she's one of the sweetest girls. She's getting ready once she gets her. She just moved into a place, so she's actually going to start training to be a wrestler. So
nice.
she already has the mentality and and she's getting the promos, and she actually credits you for seeing how you do promos. So she tries her best to, like, not emulate it, but to have that same passion. So, and I'm gonna say it right here too. A couple of the other WWO folks, and as well as TKWA folks, have, complimented you. I don't know if they went to you directly, but they say, like, you inspired them with the promos. It is, you got that passion, and I always said that you could see it in your eyes when you do the promo. You can sell it, and I don't have to worry so much like other people. And we got some great folks in WWO that some of them are half wrestlers, and some of them know they've been in the wrestling business, and others are streamers who are now getting it and taking it to the next level. So, but they all credit you, saying that's the foundation. That's who the guy that we got to learn promos from.
I've told a lot of the folks that I've had the opportunity to talk to in our Discord that if they ever have a question or want help, I'll gladly help them. I've had my own training center. I've trained people to do wrestling. I've trained people to do promos. If they want help, all they can do is reach out and ask. But the biggest recommendation I can make is take the personality or character you're wanting to do, and you got to dial it up. You can't hold back. I mean, if you've got a serious shooter style character like a Steve Blackman, you still have to hold that, but you still have to have that energy to drive it. If you're an over the top character, then you've got to be over the top, and you really have to do it. And when I do Showtime Shane Black, I've been doing it for so long. That's an easy pair of shoes I put on any time. Doing the new character that I do is tougher for me because the character doesn't speak a whole lot. But I just did a promo with a longtime friend of mine who I use as the general or the commissioner of XFW, who's also done ring announcing for me. I've trained him a little bit, and I had him sit in on a promo I did for the Maniacal Glee, and I broke him. We had to shoot it like 8 different times because of the goofy, stupid crap I'll do as this character. And it's the same thing. I know what I want, so I've got to turn that dial up because this is what entertains the people. And that's the whole thing. If you want a promo and you want it to resonate, you've got to realize you're not doing it just for you. You're doing it for a crowd, an audience. You need to make an impact. So turn that energy up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've noticed. Big Wrestling Fan says, I like the goth girl. She has a good promo, but seems to holds herself back from doing a great promo. He's referring to Jocelyn. I'm like, it's all about being more comfortable, and it's getting into the swing of it and bringing the passion out. One of the things with Jocelyn, and Shane, I know from your promo, is you rarely, and I don't think I've ever heard you use any profanity. You bore it like almost on it with something else, and it's fucking funny. She goes into this long thing, and we've managed to curve their back, but she gets it done. So she's still learning, and a lot of them are still learning. OSU Phoenix, he's now the showman. We sat down one day, and he was like, what can I do? And we started talking, and we actually had a Joker contest. He sounded like the Joker, I sound like the Joker. And like, hello, friends. And we started going back and forth. And I said, you do a damn good Joker. Come up with a gimmick. And him and Jeremy got together, and now it's the showman, which is
nice.
Fucking awesome. So, and you see how far LG, Mr. G have gone.
Yes.
It's like they do 50 million characters. One of the greatest things from you, Shane, and we're gonna go a couple more questions and a little bit more, and then we're gonna call it after this. But one of the funniest things is wrestling history. I remember when we brung in Maniacal Glee, and the whole story, I didn't even know you were doing a gimmick. That gimmick. I said back in the day, and I said, we're trying to do something with King LG and yourself, so you can come close to it, so you can win the title this day and day. So, and I like to think 6 months ahead. And I said, if you had a mask gimmick back in 1980 something, Chris Adams were. And this was CCW World Class Championship Wrestling. Chris Adams wore a mask in his feud against he wasn't a free, but gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, who was I think the Texas champion. I forgot exactly what belt he had, and they wouldn't let Chris Adams wrestle Jimmy Garvin. He didn't want to wrestle Jimmy Garvin, quote unquote. So he came in with a mask, and Jimmy Garvin thought it was a jobber, and next thing you know, boom, he wins a non-title match. We're doing the same super kick move. And I said, oh my God, I got to do this with Shane, because we want to put him in that level. He's going to be the next champion anyway. We got to put it so we've tried everything till we've, try to derail your Express to the time. So I said, well, he's not going to fight LG anymore. And he says, well, I do a mask gimmick. And I was like, really? And he sent me the whole thing. And I was, when you did the thing backstage, it was like after the match, here you go, your character beats LG non-title. We go to the back and says, what the hell? And you pull off the mask and you shot that fucking promo. I was like, those are those moments that if this was a real wrestling and a real show with real television, that would have gotten over. That would have gotten so over. Let me ask you your experience. I know you do these promos a lot, and it's like one promo after another. But when the concept came and you're doing that, and you're now revealing that you're the Maniacal Glee, was that something that you always wanted to do in real life, or you just didn't get the chance to do that?
The promo was a lot of fun for me because I already had that whole gimmick because I've been doing it occasionally. I'd never thought about doing it with Showtime Shane Black, to be honest. That's kind of storyline never really presented itself before. I've wanted to do a masked gimmick for a long time because I've always liked masked wrestlers. But we didn't have a lot of them here for the longest time when I was coming up. And I didn't really have all the wrestling gear I had. There wasn't a whole lot available. I went through High Spots and a couple other places, but it really wasn't there. And of course, when you're working for other promotions, they're the ones that, kind of set up the character and stuff, even though I had a lot of input for Showtime Shane Black. They didn't want me putting a mask on because I was already a popular character on the show. So I was almost typecast myself. Even though it worked out well, I was over wherever I want. But now that I'm working with so many promotions that know me so well, they're like, you can do whatever you want. You've earned it. I said, well, I'm doing a mask thing now. And they're like, okay. And they were unsure. But now that I'm doing it, and they're like, this is ridiculous. Why do people like this? And even I'm a little shocked that they're over. But when you said, hey, we want to do this, I'm like, I've got a mask gimmick. So I was like all happy as shit when you said it. I'm like, I know exactly what I want to do. But it was the first time I got to do it. And for me, the promos, this is no different doing it for WWO than it is for any regular real promotion. To me, I treat this as the same thing. Whether I'm doing a promo for a real promotion or WWO, it's the same thing. It's to entertain. So I never had the opportunity to do it before, but it was a lot of fun to do it for you guys.
Okay, we got a couple questions here. I got a question for me. Selena threw a question out, and she had said, have you ever thought about doing something grander or bigger, following up with the WWO? Right now, you are WWO World Champion. Is there any other thing that you're looking to do while you're in that company? Would there ever be a mixture of your promotion, your video promotion, digital promotion, folks, or virtual promotion, and WWO? I don't know, because there's different. I know for me, it's different because he has AI characters created. And for us, we have like real people with it, with some AI folks. So Shane, I'm going to toss that question to you. We still got 2 other questions. We got another questions to answer, but how about that? She wants to know what's next for Showtime Shane Black.
Cross promotion is something I'm always think is a great idea. I actually refer to WWO a lot of times during my streams. When the Showtime Shane Black character is on XFW, I will talk about the fact that he's WWO World Heavyweight Champion. I will throw out who he's currently fighting or what's going on. I always say, when Joe pops into my stream, there's a Joseph Sculpture Knight from WWO or sister promotion. Always talking about it. So cross promotion, it's always open and always welcome for me. But the only thing I would do, and again, this is having the approach from the real world aspect of it. If I took a character from WWO and put them in XFW, first thing I'm going to do is go, Joe, what do you want me to do with this character? Do you want this character? Do you need this character not to lose a match because of something you got going else on? Because that'll happen in real world wrestling, where there's been times where I've gone as Showtime Shane Black to other promotions, where Alpha will email them and say, you can't have him lose on your show because of the storyline here we've got going on. So I would do the same thing with WWO. If Little G was coming on to XFW, I'd go, Joe, what do you need from me? Do you want anything for him on this show? And I'd work it in. So I treat the digital wrestling promotions just like any other promotion because it's storyline driven.
Right.
So the next thing for Showtime Shane Black is whatever the promotion they want to do. I'm not someone with an ego that thinks I have to go over all the time. I need to be a champion all the time. I do what I need to do, and I do that now with promotions, and it's something that you'll hear the term wrestling vet thrown around a lot in the world of professional wrestling. And I know I'm a 30-year veteran in the ring, but when I go to a show, I say, what do you need? What do you want? And the last show I did, I walked up to the promoters and said, who do you need to go over? Who do you want to go over? And they're like, you're going over. I don't assume I'm going over. I don't assume I'm winning the match. I could easily walk in and put over a newbie or a young kid because I know in their mind they need this kid to be elevated. And sometime using a name, even though I'm only a name on the indies and not a big guy, they can use me to help elevate that kid. But from what I will do is make sure I get myself over in that match so I don't look bad.
Yeah.
So I will do the same thing in the digital world with our promotions. Whoever booking it, I'll do whatever they need to do. It's that simple.
Okay, you got a surprise for you here. He just popped in on the YouTube side. Mr. G.
Mr. G.
So we're going to go quick questions, folks, because we're already hit almost to the 2-hour mark, and we don't want to keep Showtime too long on here. Shane, big wrestling fan, says, if you have a mask on, how do you prevent the muffled sounds coming from the camera? So like when you have the mask and you're shooting the promo, how do you make it not sound muffled?
My wrestling character that's in the mask doesn't do a whole lot of talking. To give the best explanation of it, it's kind of like the Joker meets Venom, is where it is, and it's a lot of laughter, it's a lot of weird sounds, and then there's points in matches where it goes from a very playful giggle and sound to a very demonic sound. So the Glee laugh, and then other times it goes, it's got a clear transition. So when I do it, it comes out from my throat so loud, it really doesn't get muffled. I've actually had fans in audience say how they find the laugh that I do very effective and very contagious. So when I'm in the middle of the ring and I know they can hear it at the back of the arena, I'm doing it right. But that also comes from doing this for a long time and knowing how to project your voice. And you have to learn that when you're doing promos, because you can talk in your normal voice and it's there, but when you got to do a promo, you got to push that voice through and really get your sound out there. So it's similar to people who sing when they talk about using vocal cords for power. You have to do the same thing in a promo, same thing in a match, because now when I wear the mask, I can get the spots I want the audience to hear out, and that way when I'm talking to my opponent, they don't hear that. Because that's one thing I see a lot of rookies do is they're talking too much in the ring, and I can hear it at the back of the audience. Headlock, counter, duck, this. You don't want the audience hearing that. I you know that. You know that. And it's a fine line you got to toe. So, yeah, when I'm wearing the mask, I know when I want to project the voice, even when I'm doing a promo, how to get that through so it's not so muffled.
Okay, we have another thing. Is well, Terry goes, yes, promotion is promotion no matter what platform you are. It all helps. Mr. G says enjoy your one-on-ones with him. And he just said great advice. Terry says, do you have chocolate? Like in Venom's voice that you just did that. Maniacal Glee, so he wanted to do that. Selena says, how is it working with Scully since he is the heel? What do you think of that chemistry? I guess like since I'm the bad guy, really trying to get at Shane or trying to how can I eliminate Shane, but you keep foiling our things. So it's like, damn idiots! My Reapers are idiots, and you got Hillbilly. You know,
I have nothing to do with that. Joe says this is what I need, and that's what I give him. And I think honestly, even though you and I have never met face to face yet, I do feel that we get along well. We have a lot of chemistry. And Joe and I have talked before. We actually ran into a lot of the same groups. We just never crossed paths. We know a lot of the same people from pro wrestling, but we were never on the same shows together. And that always makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's funny because I think you started in 94, like mid to late 90s, and I started at 90. And by my mid 90s, I'm already was like slowing down and was running shows. So it's like I wasn't really now active unless somebody paid me and I went someplace to do it. So that's the most funny thing. Some of the guys that he met, I'm already knew, and vice versa. So it's really funny how our circles are. Chemistry-wise, I think I've been referred to many times as the Bobby Heenan, Jesse Ventura type, and Paul Lee's character. And I try to involve all three because just like Jesse Ventura in commentary, I gotta root for the heels. The heels are always right. You know, when it comes to the Bobby Heenan, I got to do the one-liners. And just like you said before, we're trying to make someone laugh, you know, trying to break them out of character. That's one thing I always, when I started getting into the gimmick, I always did that to TK Chris. And there were times he would just stop, and I think I forgot what joke it was. It was me and Cannoli and Chris, and I said a joke in the most serious face, like Bobby Heenan, and they just broke up in laughter. I think it was one of the TKWA house shows or something like that, and they just busted out laughing. They could not stop. Then for me and Jeremy, when he's Jack McDaniel, it's the same thing. I gotta have that. I just feel it brings more fun to a show when you could do that and just bring that out there. Like Shane, when I could sit back and watch a promo and then it goes live and we're recording the shows and I'm trying to not laugh because I know here comes the promo, here we go, and I'm trying not to, and I'm trying to be the stiff bad guy because he's going up against one of my guys. And just the one-liners, it's always funny, like how you go with LG, you know, and when you go with Hillbilly or somebody, you always hit those one-liners throughout your promos, and that's what sells it. So I think that's what gets it here. Big Wrestling Fan says, so real wrestling, how do you have that kind of match that makes people forget that they have a phone versus the match? So real wrestling, how do you have that kind of match that makes people forget that they have a phone versus the match, where they would rather sit and play Angry Birds and stuff? So Shane, in other words, what kind of match can you present that fans won't be doing this while the match is going on?
That goes right down to the psychology of the match and drawing the emotion out of the crowd, which is every wrestler's job. If you've got folks going to the pisser or going off to get popcorn or snacks, you're not doing your job. And right now, with the character I'm doing, they're putting me always after intermission, because that's the opening match and match after intermission are two of the most important matches on an indie show ever.
Yep.
Because that sets the tone for the show. And I always look to draw the audience in, and that is a lot of character work. If I'm Showtime Shane Black, it's a lot of interaction with the crowd, whether I'm heel or I'm face. I will make eye contact with the front row. I will play to the cameras. I will play to the crowd. If something's not working, you have to change it on the fly. If something is working, you need to double down on that. And now doing the Maniacal Glee, it's the same thing, but I approach it differently. My goal is to make them laugh. Right now, the fact that I can get an auditorium full of people to chant for a goddamn paper mache pinata called Bruce lets me know I've got them invested in this goofy character I created. And every show I've been doing, I've had it. I've actually taken the chants from those shows and put it into my stream when the character comes out on the stream, because that is what you need to do. And if you can go out there and do all the moves you want, that doesn't really keep the audience invested. It's the character behind those moves and what they do and how you perform to the audience that pulls them in.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you say that finally somebody understands professional wrestling the way it used to be. Damn it.
Yes.
Showtime Shane, Trent Killer Syndicate says Shane could get a bag of potatoes over, and that's how good he is. And yes, I agree with that. Terry 3D says, yep, WWE have wrestlers on the roster who can't even do that.
With WWE, sometimes it's not always the wrestler, sometimes it is. But when you get to that big stage, you're given specific direction, and there's times you can't deviate from that direction. And unfortunately, sometimes the creative crowd behind that doesn't see what you're capable of because they don't give the opportunity to shine, and it's tough. If you're on the indies and you can really do something, and you look at it now, and right now is the best time for some of the guys in WWE, because they never acknowledge indie wrestling, they never acknowledge other promotions ever, and now they are. So now they can say, and I just saw an interview with AJ Styles where he talked about he coming to WWE, that Vince McMahon never saw a match with AJ Styles before bringing him in. It was the other talent creations that brought him in. To me, that's a fail. If you're bringing a guy, if I'm running my indie shows, which I've had in the past, and someone says, hey, I want a booking, the first thing I'm doing is going onto YouTube to find out what they do and what they're doing to the audience. And if I just see flip, 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 I'm probably not going to book you. If I see you getting the crowd fired up, whether you're a face or a heel, that's what I'm looking for. I don't give a shit if you can do a 450. Now, if you can get the crowd to cheer as you get up to the top rope before they see the 450, then we're talking. It's all about that investment in the character and the emotion in the match.
Yep, and that's exactly it. Even when I was actively running an indie promotion, my booker, I would have a booker, and I have a booker and agent who will do the stuff. And I would say he would recommend someone, and I would have to see the match. I would have to give me something so I can see what that person's doing. What I can see, is it worth an investment? Because if I got to pay this person, I want to make sure he can get that audience to show up. And it's really hard, because to convey that into someone who's never been in that who's never done that, it's sometimes, especially if some indies that they just go in and do high spot. I've had indie guys who come up to me, well, I can do 50 moonsaults on the way down and sip tea, and that's great, it gets a pop. And I would say, what else can you do? And they would be like, huh? And I will say, yeah, can you sell a promo? Can you do this? No. So, it's one of those things. Psychology plays a big thing in wrestling. We're going to do 3 more questions, and then we're going to call it. Big Wrestling Fan says, if you had a simple finish like a headlock, who puts it over more? The guy doing it, the guy receiving it, or the commentators? That's a very good question. That
honestly, that can be a little bit of everybody. And this goes into selling. And again, the commitment to your character. And to give you a couple examples, if you've got a guy with a powerhouse that's doing the headlock, he's got to be able to grind it. At the same time, you want to flex when you're doing it. And the guy taking it needs to make it look like he's being killed. And then the commentators really got to push to sell that as well. And that's the whole thing, is you really need a little bit of everything to really make it work. But it's going to start with the two guys in the ring, more than the commentators. You need two guys with chemistry, because if you got a guy who's trying to do a headlock, the other guy's just going to stand there with his head there and not move, it's going to look like crap. But if you got two guys in there, and just the last match I did, I said to the kid, what do you want to do? And he says, when he told me what his moves he really wanted to hit, they were his signatures, I made damn sure I sold those like I was being murdered. Because that's me helping him get himself over. And when I was training people, this very same thing, I would say that they would always say, how many matches did you win? Well, I don't keep track. I don't give a shit. If you have to get yourself over in a match to win, to get yourself over, you've lost.
Yep.
And I always use the reference, how many matches has Mick Foley won? Because all the big memories Mick Foley has were all the matches he lost. That's because he put the effort and the emotion into the match itself. So to answer that question, to me, if a headlock is the finish, it takes both of those guys to make it work. Not the commentators. It takes both those guys in the ring. The guy putting the headlock on to make it look like it's good, and the guy selling with him to make it work.
Okay, another thing here is we got Trent Killer Syndicate, Chris going for Shane. Who was the greatest opponent, promo-wise, that you ever gone up? And I'm referring to TKW and WWO. He says his guess would be Duke. That was a great feud, probably the greatest in TKWA.
Duke was really good, and him and I had conversations on the side where I'm telling him, I said, dude, you're killing it. For me personally, it'd be between Duke and Mr. G, because both those guys were the two of the first people that actually reached out to me saying, what are you going to do so we can have a back and forth? So I really, really like that. So Duke had some good ones where he knocked it out of the park, and I felt like he had energy in there and raised it up a little bit. He just didn't sit in his chair and just say, I'm going to beat you up. I liked what he did because it made it feel like he was a real character. Same thing with Mr. G, where he would be different characters, even the same guy. So I would say, honestly, it's between Duke and Mr. G.
Okay, cool. I got to say for that, also, in TKWA, one of the greatest things I used to love was not only your promo, and you bring up Duke. Duke had a great promo. I used to love the mixed matches that we would have. It would be you and Pixie taking on like Duke and Spicy Wifey, and we all know how Brie is, and I miss her. And when they were like I forgot what it was, like she was like Spicy receptionist, and he was like Duke the reporter, and those are stuff that really gets so over. You don't have to always be, well, let me tell you something, brother, and do the whole spiel. If you could do something out of this world and do something funny that still gets it over and gets that tells the story and tells the match, it's gold, because you're still making your point. You're bringing eyes to your promo. Like, damn, that's a damn great promo. I like that. Everything else, you kind of say, it's okay, you know what, you want to go to ringside and watch the virtual match, but you can't take that promo out of your head. And that's one of the things I got to say. That was fun with when you guys had that interaction. Big Wrestling Fan says, in WWO, besides yourself, who is your favorites, Shane?
Oh, that's tough, because I don't want to really...
That's okay. The locker room will kill you later. But go ahead.
Yeah. I really like what Jeremy the Madman's doing right now. I dig the fact that he's really pouring into his character, and I dig that. And right now he's the one that comes to the top of my head. How he's pulling off, and always Joe is always killing it with some of the things that he comes off with, and the devious plots and plans that he comes up with. That is entertaining. But I mean, there's a lot of guys in WWO right now. I see a lot of heart pouring into it. So that's one of the things. So right now, I would have to say Jeremy the Madman is one of the guys that pops up for me right now. And both Little G and Mr. G are always going to be there because Little G kills me every time. When that little bastard put my face on a box of cereal, it took me hours to stop laughing before I could do a promo. I'm like, I was applauding him. I'm like, he took that extra step to bust my balls, and I thought it was great.
Yeah. It's stuff like that. Again, it doesn't take much. When you can do something as simple as that and it tells the story, it's gold. It is literally gold. Like for me, it's like me and Jeremy, we go over everything, and me, Marvin, and Jeremy, we are creative and we go over everything, and we plan the whole show. And like you said earlier, there's an opener, there's the after intermission, there's main event. I've learned, and this is from Eddie Gilbert, wrestling is like a show is like an up and down wave. You get your great spots that you excite the crowd. You got to take it down a little bit so they're not exhausted. Then you take it back up. Then you take it down. Then you hit the main event, and it's gold. It's time to go home. So we kind of run it, WWO, this same way, where we got to know, like, damn, Shane's got to be main event, and we got to figure out how we could get him over and how we could do this and this and this and get everybody in it. One of... Damn right, Chris. No. See, no, Chris. You need to be a commentator. I got to get your ass back in the booth with me because I missed when you used to do that. I'll gladly welcome you. I don't care. We can even do TKW offshoot on the side too. But to have you as a commentator, you got to have that. So, Mr. G says, I can say you have helped me more, Shane, to do better promos. That's what Mr. G says. Overall, I gotta say, I know me and Jeremy one time talked about this, and me and Selena know each other in real life, so she'll go and says, yeah, all the schemes that you do, all the crazy bad things that you try to take on Shane, and he comes back. It's like the old cartoons. Like, Snidely Whiplash, unhand that horse, stuff like that. And I will say, well, that's what sells. It's like I'm the evil owner, and I'm trying to stop this guy from taking the belt off of my champion. And when it does happen, it blows my mind, and we got to try to reclaim it, and we got to put obstacles. Whenever we plan stuff, and I'm like, yeah, we got to sell the story, we got to do this, we got to do that. Honestly, I'm always thinking of the players involved. So it's like a movie. And we're going to talk about that real quick too, Shane. Nobody knows that Shane is also a movie actor. So whenever I get you in a spot and I'm like, okay, Shane, this is what you're going to do. This is what I give you the blueprint to follow through. LG will do our stuff, and when it combines, it's some of the most hilarious stuff in the world. Because it's like you take it so serious, and you keep your face straight. And I know when I do my commentary, I'm the bag, and I'm saying these one-liners, and I'm trying not to bust out laughing because I know the co-commentator, either be Chris or be Jeremy, they're busting out laughing. And there are inside jokes that we do, and it gets them. So, Mr. G says you will never know who you would get. Loco, crazy, or just him.
Exactly. So, and that's why I liked his promos a lot.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. And where do we go from here? Like I said, right now, Shane the Madman. Look at this. Jeremy the Madman. Shane is his own madman. Jeremy the Madman is in a gross interview with Showtime Shane Black. We are currently building up on the road to Wrestle Clash, so you'll get to see those. So one of the things that I want to bring up to everybody here, Shane is an actor. Shane, you showed me, it was funny, where you showed me that you were recording stuff in the Art Factory in New Jersey. And here, we used to do the shows in the Art Factory. I still got the footage to do it. So let's go quick because we're running out of time. So let's go, Shane. Let's talk about that acting gig. How the hell did you get into acting?
Back when I was with the Samoans, they always said, since you're doing so much acting and wrestling, if you ever want to start reaching outside of that to get other stuff. So I've always tried to get my hands in that. So I've done a couple small commercials here and there. I did 2 films up at the Art Factory for Golden Cake Productions. Still hoping someday they get released. They came in a lot of financing issues, but it's always something I've wanted to do. And right now with my Bloodsport 6 Productions, I'm working on a couple fan films and web series stuff I want to do. So I've gotten to do quite a bit of stuff, small, low key. I've wound up doing a lot more stunt work because it transitions well with the professional wrestling. So I want to do more of it. I've always been a show off, and I like to make people, I like to get emotional reactions out of people, whether it's laughing, whether it's holy shit, what's wrong with this guy. And a friend of mine has had a lot of small films in art contests and film production stuff. And I've got a couple things I'm going to be doing for him down the road. He does a lot of horror stuff, and he's won several awards with it. So he's writing stuff specifically for me. I'm like, whenever you want it, you let me know and I'm there. So I've got a lot of, my problem is I put too much on my plate.
Yeah.
Between my streaming, trying to do the acting stuff, my actual day-to-day job, all the other creating stuff I do, I don't have enough time to get everything done is always my problem. My wife.
Yeah, that's another thing too.
Yeah, I dip my toes in just about everything. The game design, trying to get the wrestling game off the ground again. So I've really got to buckle down to 1 or 2 things. I've got a backstage account on IMDb, and I use Shane Black as there. So right now on IMDb, I'm Shane Black 3. But I fill out as many auditions as I can and see what comes down the road. And if I've got time to do it, I jump out and do it. And that's the hardest part right now is getting the time to do these things, because I've still got to do my day job to pay the bills, pay the mortgage, pay everything else. And a lot of the actings I get are small things. They only pay a little bit here and there. So I'm hoping down the road to turn it into something better. And once I get my web series really going, my friend and I are writing it, and the folks that know what we're doing think it's ridiculously funny. So I'm hoping it'll work out pretty well. Maybe move on to something else.
That's awesome. And you've seen some of the stuff I've done with the Reapers, that they get chased around and they're coming out of the train tunnel with the train. They're driving a car in the reverse and all that. I've always wanted to do stuff like that. I got like green screen stuff and other things that I wanted to perform and do. So I understand that. And like on my thing at one time as well, it's like I had to do live wrestling. I had to do the podcast. I had to do, other things. And then there's my wife involved. And then there's, so many other things to do. Gaming, it's like now I started streaming again because I used to stream a lot and I was affiliated. So that was a lot of insanity. And now with WWO, at one time it was like doing this WWO and trying to set up bring back the real WWO. And that's crazy because it's the same thing. It's even the characters. It's like I told Shane, okay, Shane, you're the WWO virtual champion, but I'm going to hire you as WWO World Champion here. And we were joking back and forth about that. And I'm like, yeah, you'll be the first double champion or same champion to transcend both fields, because nobody's ever done that. So one of the things that, before we go, folks, first of all, Shane, it's been so awesome to sit down with you. I've been dying to do this interview for some time, and now our times have never clicked because of different work schedules. Now my schedules is flexible enough. One of the things I gotta say is sitting here with you, we've talked a couple of times, but now going through this whole interview, it's true. We have a lot in common, and I didn't know you were doing this and that, and oh well, I did that too, and you did this too, and I'm like, oh shit, we were in the same places and we just never met. But I'm glad we met now. one of the things is you are always great to be, be part of WWE. I know you're going to be as long as you want to be with, being in WWO. We always welcome you to it. It's a lot of bumps on the road. We got a lot of stuff going on. Lord knows if we could get 2K25 to work, because it's glitchy. Because with us, it's like when you do your stuff, it makes it easier for you because you're doing all your own characters and you're running your show, and everything's through you. We have Jeremy, we have Marvin, myself, and LG, and all of us got different characters we got to download and all that.
Yeah.
I did an arena, and the graphics on the the barricades were floating and moving around. So that's how crazy it was. It was floating, and I said, hey, you know what? That's there's glitches on that end. So it's like the transfer between characters. So it's just weird. But you know what, guys? Shane has been giving us 2 hours and almost 30 minutes of his time. And I gotta say, it's been fun. I enjoyed this. I'm very glad we did this. We're gonna finish up the comments, and then we'll go from there. Big Wrestling Fan says, Joe, no offense, but we need more good play-by-play voices on commentary. You have that one that's crushing in that spot, and others that kind of phone it in as play-by-play. Yeah, we're always looking for play-by-play, and now that I know a certain TK person is around.
See, that's another avenue that's tough, because that doing play-by-play is almost like doing a very, 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 very long promo. Yep. You have to be on the entire time, whether you're the color guy or the play-by-play man or the color commentator. You have to be on the entire time. And I've had some friends that sat in with me on XFW, and they're the same thing. Oh, there's an arm drag. Oh, there's a headlock. And after, I'm like, dude, you sucked. You got to crank it up. But they haven't done it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah, and one of the funny things, too, is me, I've always been the color commentator. So I'm the bad guy. That's my niche. Whenever I get out of my niche and I got to call a match, it's weird because I have to do it in my way. So it's like, oh, look at that asshole grabbing that headlock over there. What the hell is he doing? So it's not going to be like a Jim Ross thing. It's not going to be a Golden Sully or a Tony Schiavone or a JR. So my thing has always been the Bobby Heenan type character. It's like, I'm going to make fun. I'm going to do this. So that's where I fit. So
I steal mine from Joey Styles, since he did all ECWs by himself.
Yeah.
Since I'm doing XFW by myself, I take a lot of stuff and spots from Joey Styles.
Oh my God! But you know what? Shane, thanks for being part of the stream. We have a lot of people who still have questions, so guys, maybe we can bring Shane back another day.
Anytime, dude. Anytime. It's a blast.
We got a lot here. It's like, hire Joey Styles. You need that one guy. That Scully's hit them with a real slobber knocker or an uppercut. Yeah, I could probably do that. Chris says, great catching up to you guys. Mr. G has to rewatch it because he came in later, so he has to watch the beginning. So guys, again, thanks for everybody. Thank you. There's so many people now that try now that are now here. So I appreciate everybody popping in. They popped up late, but it's great. Thank you very much. Terry 3Ds, Big Wrestling Fan, Trent Kindle Syndicate, Selena Sindel, Mr. G. We have, I got to go way, way back because they were all watching the show and they were still here. We have just, I don't think I can keep going. So they have so many people that were watching, and they loved this interview. So thanks everybody. Thanks for being part of Off Scripts Podcast, where we talk about anything under the sun. Shane, maybe we could come back again, and I can grab you, and we could say, oh, here we go. Does Shane drive a Cybertruck? No, he drives the 18 van.
I do drive an 18 van. I do.
And we'll have to bring that again. We'll have to bring Shane too, and go further into that. But yeah, he has an awesome 18 van, and I'm so jealous of that. So, and it's legit, folks. He actually goes everywhere with it. Have you ever been pulled over Like,
Yes. My wife and I, for a couple of years, we were going to South Carolina every year for a vacation. And one morning we were driving. We stopped. I was pulling into a car cleaning spot to shampoo some up, throw away the trash. And a cop's pulling in behind my wife and goes, "Oh shit, what'd you do?" And nothing. And he pulls up a smile and goes, "Hey, you don't have any bazookas in the back there, do you?" He just wanted to stop and see it and have a laugh about it.
you know, and it's funny, and Selena won't say it, but she bought a replica of the Knight Rider car. That was an actual studio. Yeah. Long story. She told me about it. And she showed me it. And Selena, you're gonna have to get pictures, and you're gonna have to send it up. You know.
Yes.
So.
The 18 van is a whole other thing that's taken on life, because now it's the NEPA team, and that's a side thing I do for charities and working with people to raise funds.
There you go. I actually I got a couple of big pictures of me in her car, and the Mark V from Speed Racer. I was actually sitting in a Mark V.
That's awesome.
So, two of my favorite cars. And I was like so jealous when I saw Shane with the 18 van. I'm like, oh, you know. Selena says, "You got 5 minutes, go on." So we bring that up. I can see Joe drive the Scooby-Doo van. I actually have a picture with the Scooby-Doo van. Yeah, they had a convention here, so that's where it was. Joinkies or Jinkies. There we go. Selena, I'm gonna tell him the thing. So message me if you don't want me to. Too late. She was trying. Selena is like 5'6". No, I'm sorry, 5'9", 5'10". She's tall, and she has the goth hair. She's the fangs. She has legit fangs, folks. I'm trying to get her on camera, and she's got the green eyes. Looks like Elvira mixed with Vampirella. If you ever know who Vampirella is. Shane?
I need to meet this girl.
Okay, with the airbags, and I call her Fang Face all the time. She's gonna be pissed off. So she messaged me one day and she says, "You know, Scully, can you meet me quickly here?" And I says, "Okay." And we've known each other for years, but she still prefers calling me Scully instead of, you know, "What, babe? I'm coming." My wife is calling me upstairs. The real boss of the house. So she goes and says, "Hey, meet me here. I need you to do this favor for me." So I'm like, okay. This guy was one of the people that used to build the replicas for the TV show for Knight Rider.
Oh.
And he was getting a divorce from what I remember, and he was selling everything in his house, because you know when you get a divorce you got to split everything. So he was just being an ass. "I'm gonna sell everything, you know, I don't care, I'm gonna get rid of everything before the wife takes it." So one of the things was a Knight Rider car. It was one of the actual cars. So she was driving by, coming from Walmart, and she was driving by home, and you know, she saw the car, it's set for sale, so she wanted to just take a picture in it. The guy said, "Do you want it?" And she says, "Oh yeah, but I can't afford it. That's probably like $100,000. So he says, "I'll give it to you for $3,000. So she has money. In fact, she wants to donate. She wants to put money into for us to run real WWO shows. Trying to persuade her, like, "Look, you're not going to make the money back, but that's on her." So she goes back, gets the money, calls me and says, "Hey, can you drive me here? I want to get this car." So I don't know what car it is. So I'm and oh my God, and the light goes back and forth and everything. You open the door and it's the 80s all over again with the monitors and all that. And the guy updated, so he has the backup cam and the little monitor. And when you call on the phone, the light, you know, whatever blinks, the voice blinks. So she buys this car and she's driving it, and I'm behind her. She passes a Pennsylvania state trooper. You know how the state troopers are. She passes it.
Yeah.
Lights go. And I'm slowing back and away from her, and I'm like, I don't know what she did, but he pulls her over, and all you see is her, like the guy wants to take a picture with a cell phone. and she still has it to this day in a garage, and it still runs and every
That's
summer she
awesome.
takes it out, and she gets pulled over by everybody just to take a picture. Then it's like Elvira stepping out of a Knight Rider car, so you fucked. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's funny as hell when you see that. It's just screw you, Scully. That's what Selena says. So that's one of the things. But folks, we gotta end the show here. Shane, a big wrestling fan, says, have Shane ever had a match with Sin Bodhi?
No, I have not.
Okay, so there you go. So, all right, guys, that's it. It's time for us to go. We hit the 2.5 hour mark. Before anybody says anything else, and we keep going, Shane, tell everybody where they can find you and about the links to your wrestling promotion.
You can find everything and all the links on bloodsword6.com. You'll see all the links, and right at the top you'll see our merch, and one of our shows is constantly on there. You can find all our social media right on bloodsword6.com.
Okay, and where can they find your virtual wrestling company? The same thing?
Those links are right on there. The Facebook link will take you right to XFW.
Okay, there you go. For me, Joseph Scoldren Knight, and my nemesis, Showtime Shane Black. We gotta say thanks everybody for being here. We
Thanks
enjoyed
for having
it.
me, Joe.
Oh, dude, we gotta do another get together. We gotta roast some
Absolutely.
indies. So
You let me know when. I'll make it happen.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Take care. Have a great night.